Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto Could Not Convince Nagato After Pain Invasion. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no more time. Let's start the story.
Feeling the wind in his hair, Naruto grinned. He was back in Konoha. Walking after defeating the Kyuubi 2 weeks earlier, he gazed up at the clear blue sky. What a nice, peaceful day. He scowled, almost too peaceful. He's too strong and unbeatable, so he's a lame guy. This is where you get upset. The tree was then reduced to splinters after he was smashed into it. He was launched into the air before he could blink, and he was beaten and bruised all over. What the? Thought Naruto. He was struck once more after seeing a blur of black. Naruto collapsed and coughed up blood. Then he was abruptly confronted by a snarling figure who grabbed him by the collar. Naruto appeared perplexed and asked, "What the hell did you do to Kyuubi-san? Who are you?" Then he was flung back, and his tricep was pierced by a sword. The enigmatic figure leaned in toward Naruto as he winced. Naruto opened his mouth as if to say, "I said, what did you do to the Kyuubi?" and then released a pressure damage from his throat. The attack passed through the man innocuously, and he did not even move. The man punched Naruto in the stomach as he gaped. Naruto almost threw up. Madara hissed, "I'm Madara Uchiha." Naruto's eyes expanded as he said, "The owner of the fox." Madara snarled. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he kicked Madara away and yanked out the sword that was lodged in his arm, saying, "You Hokages are all alike, pathetic, worthless, and weak." Madara laughed. Naruto just threw some shurikens and used shuriken shadow clones, saying, "Don't even bother. I'm the leader of Akatsuki. You fought pain before. Now imagine someone so powerful pays homage to him." Despite appearing to have all the shuriken, Madara just shrugged and threw his own. Naruto chuckled and attempted to avoid it, but Madara used a powerful killing intent to pin him to the ground, causing the shuriken to strike him in the left shoulder. Naruto scowled. Madara grinned, "You pitiful Namakazes, you actually thought that your Kami Fuins could beat our superior and far older Sharingan?" Naruto raised his eyebrows. "Far older?" Madara let out a sigh. All Kekai Genkai descended from the Sage of Six Paths. He and the Rinnegan thought, and all jutsu came into existence when he had twins. They were born with the Sharingan and Byakugan. Those branched off into other, lesser dojutsu. Other children of his got lava release, ice release, wood release, etc., etc. Then, some mutations caused dead bone pulse, and he threw himself at Naruto as Madara continued in a drone. Naruto ignored him and made a Rasengan using a nearby clone. "Kami Fun." Madara said, "Any last words?" Naruto gave a shrug. Madara arched an eyebrow before gasping and being hurled through numerous trees by the Rasengan. Naruto smiled, then watched in amazement as Madara stood up and cleaned himself up. Naruto immediately leapt into the air and produced dozens of shadow clones in response to Madara's laughter as all of the Narutos hurled chakra multiplied kunai at the ground. Madara arched an eyebrow after picking one up carelessly. Madara was hit by lightning-fast blows and surrounded by explosions. Naruto gazed at the dust cloud and huge craters. "That should take care of him." "Wrong," Naruto exclaimed as he watched Madara get to her feet. "The Hirishin, it's useful, but comparing it to my space-time ninjutsu would be like comparing great fireball technique to Amaterasu." Naruto was staring darkly at him. With his chakra steadily increasing, he questioned, "So basically, I can't beat you?" Madara nodded and grinned. Then, with a roar, Naruto unleashed a white burst of chakra. "Great wind armor," Madara added with a shrug. Naruto smiled and asked, "What's that supposed to do?" Then Madara was struck in the back, and Naruto's fist actually struck and jarred his spine. Madara let out a sigh, and the big hole in his back began to grow again. "Namikaze, let's be serious. I've had over 90 years to work on my ninja skills. I'm immortal, and I could have killed you at any time I wanted to." Naruto exhaled. "Fine, what do you want?" Sweat dropping, Naruto said, "To kill you." The wind surrounding Naruto then deflected Madara's punch before countering it. Madara let out a grunt and jumped back. Then he laughed. "Great fireball technique, pressure damage." Despite their collision, the C-ranked attack outperformed the B-ranked with a yelp. Naruto jumped quickly out of the way. His wind armor blazed as a flame licked at him. Naruto quickly called it off. Naruto was perspiring profusely after turning to face Madara. He had a thought. He threw his weights at Madara after carefully removing them. Madara laughed and removed his own weight. Then he threw his, saying, "100 kilograms, huh?" Naruto took a swallow. The air was distorted by the weight Madara threw. It had its own gravity field because it was so heavy. After letting out a sigh and removing his weights due to gravity, Naruto sprinted toward Madara with a sigh. Madara took off the remaining weights. Naruto attempted to strike Madara with his fist. Naruto was slammed back after Madara's laugh. "What the?" Madara grinned. "I moved my arm at supersonic speeds, causing a sonic boom, repelling you. Naruto was grumbling. Damn, Madara chuckled. Naruto got to his feet with difficulty and then snapped his fingers, saying, "Don't worry, you're still eons ahead of Sasuke." The tree behind him transformed back into shadow clones, which all exploded, but Madara didn't notice because he raised an eyebrow. Naruto swiftly kicked Madara after he was flung at him, and then he was pressure damaged. Madara let out a wild laugh. He cracked his neck and exclaimed, "That actually hurt, nice job." Naruto gave his eyes a rub. Madara only had a minor bruise on his left arm and a small first-degree burn on his neck. Madara then grabbed Naruto and threw him aside after he ran at him once more. After glancing away from it, Naruto took another blow. "That's strange, why didn't he simply beat me up and down like Lee could with just taijutsu?" He was slammed into the ground 3 seconds later while in midair. He then dodged a blow and spun in midair, punching Madara, who choked, before being flown back and hitting Naruto, who grimaced before hero-shining to Madara. "Unless this is delayed like Shinra Tensei," he said. He tried, at least when Madara appeared to run at Naruto in slow motion. Naruto raised an eyebrow and attempted to avoid it, but discovered that he was also moving very slowly. Madara was silently observing Naruto as he looked around at the multicolored void. Naruto was thrown back, but fortunately the blow didn't cause much pain. And back Madara approached Naruto as he fell, thinking, "What the hell? Is there no gravity here, or something? This world works the way you desire. Do you desire gravity? You'll experience gravity. Do you wish to change the dimensions? It will occur, but your skills are drastically diminished and there is no chakra," Madara said. "Oh, and time stops in here," Naruto sighed. Madara smiled and said, "Now you get the rules of the game." Naruto quickly wished for super gravity and slammed Madara into the ground after he had punched him and sent him flying. Nato grinned before a kunai was placed around his neck, "But I don't play by the rules," Madara muttered. Naruto leaned back and struck Madara with a fist, causing him to wince. Then, he saw a portal leading to the real world and quickly leapt out of it. After entering the real world, Naruto dodged Madara's attack, knocking him onto his back before he pulled out a ninjutsu and whispering, "Time to die." Naruto. Sakura ran up to Madara, who turned with a frown and saw dozens of shinobi, either Chunin, Jonin, or Anbu. Madara replaced his ninjutsu and sighed, saying, "We'll meet again." Naruto moaned in response, and Madara vanished. "Are you in pain?" Naruto gave a headshake. "Not bad." Sakura's worried expression persisted. Naruto grinned. Sakura glanced at the deep cut on his arm and said, "Really, I'm fine." Sakura gave Naruto a furious look for being harmed, and Naruto went pale. "Really? Come on Sakura, lighten up. If I was your boyfriend and I got hurt, I'd understand, but..." Sakura gave him a look. Naruto swallowed. "Baka. You're the Hokage and you got hurt." Then, muttering to herself, Sakura began to heal him. Naruto laughed nervously. Later Naruto was in his office, fully recovered. He examined a piece of paper, a Genin's application form for Jonin. After reviewing it, he signed it and handed it over to an Anbu. A Genin team requested a C-ranked mission, according to another sheet. After locating one, he dispatched an Anbu to retrieve the team. He gave them the sheet. When they got there, gazing at the ceiling, he let out a sigh. A knock on the door caught his attention. "What?" he yelled. Hinata entered. Appearing a little shy, Naruto instantly became happier. "Hinata-chan!" he exclaimed, embracing her. Hinata burst out laughing. Naruto appeared perplexed. "Is something wrong?" Naruto. "Huh?" Hinata was in the doorway when Naruto turned to face it. He arched an eyebrow. "Then who?" A kunai was used to stab him in the back. After chuckling, the Hinata he was holding transformed into Madara with blood streaming from his mouth. Naruto staggered around feebly. Madara grinned. "Idiot Namikaze. Arrogant Uchiha." Madara's eyes grew wide as a huge shuriken slammed him against a wall. After Madara coughed up blood, Naruto quickly applied a seal that inhibited chakra to him. Madara laughed. He turned into a cloud of smoke after saying, "Not bad." The real Madara remarked, "But a shuriken, no matter how large, will never beat me." Naruto grinned. "You'd be surprised at what a shuriken can do," he replied. Hinata also grinned. Now she knew what was going to happen. Naruto smiled. Then Madara had a tag that looked exactly like the old chakra inhibiting seal. Naruto tackled him, and the two of them left the building. After that, they both went to the Forest of Death by Hiroshine. Naruto grinned. He made 2 shadow clones, which combined to form a Rasen Shuriken in his hand. "It was nice meeting you, Madara-sama, but you are really a threat to this village, so," he said. He tossed it. Madara cut the seal short. The seal depleted his chakra before stopping its growth, so he lacked enough for a jutsu. He could, however, use his Sharingan, so he did. Rasen Shuriken. Susanoo. The unbreakable defense met the mighty attack. Madara lost. but the defense when both enemies landed painfully on the ground with Kami Fun blazing. Naruto got to his feet first and scratched Madara, but not on the Hite 8. In his right eye Madara let out an angry cry of pain before teleporting. After panting wearily, Naruto passed out from reopened wounds. Miles away Madara gripped his bleeding eye, which appeared to be leaking gelatin. He gave a fierce growl, and his eye healed the majority of it. His ability to teleport would be somewhat impeded, but he grinned. He uttered the words, "You may have won the battle, but you haven't won the war. You'll have to sleep, to recover, to eat. I won't have to, at least, as much when you do. I'll be there certainly. You've injured me, but I'll kill you. Namikaze, I'll haunt you from your nightmares. I'll murder your friends, and make your life a living hell." He cracked a grin. "You hurt my eye? I'll repair it. You destroy Akatsuki? I'll make a new one?" He chuckled uncontrollably. "I have all the time in the world, after all." Naruto grimly gazed at the hospital wall, thinking, maybe I've been too arrogant. He got up, squirmed, and left to train, thinking, Madara might even have healed by now. He proceeded to a training field after gradually cracking his neck and knuckles. Naruto glanced at his shadow clone, who was staring back at him, and they both pulled out their samahatas and charged at each other. The two swords clashed, sending sparks flying, and the collision forced both of them back, and they continued to run at each other until the clone used a wind cutter, which Naruto dodged, then countered with a Rasengan, kicked the hand Naruto used the Rasengan in, then punched Naruto, who flew back, then threw a shuriken, which the clone returned with a kunai. Naruto then rushed at him, using Great Breakthrough, and the clone did the same. The two attacks collided, sending both flying, and after the clone turned into a log, Naruto used pressure damage, only to be struck from behind. Then, using shuriken shadow clones, he threw dozens of shuriken, none of which connected, but Naruto managed to slam a fist into his clone, thinking, wow, I'm being beaten by my own clone. What does that say about me? Which, strangely enough, didn't dispel. Naruto arched an eyebrow but kept sparring with it, then grimaced as the clone repeatedly struck him. What the hell? He thought, and then he gasped as his clone dispelled, sending memories flying into his head. Memories of Madara capturing and tying up his clone. Naruto swallowed, then let out a gasp when a cold blade slid between his ribs. Panting, Naruto awoke in his bed and turned his head, murmuring, God, I'm gonna go insane as long as he's alive. Then he almost let out a scream. Hinata was lying beside him, looking tired, and when Naruto turned around again, he saw Sakura standing above him, offering him some medicine, which he took grudgingly. Sakura grinned and said, she was treating you all night and day until she fell asleep. Naruto nodded and grinned before Sakura's words became clear. Day and night. For what duration was I absent? Sakura gave a shrug. Naruto stared at her and said, 2 days, that much time. Well, you were up against a ninja with an SS ranking. Sakura's eyes widened and she silently handed him a mirror, which Naruto glanced at before almost dropping it. You're lucky to be alive, she said. Naruto nodded and then scratched at his eye. After staring at the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, his left eye, and then the Kami Fun, and finally his old cerulean eyes, he muttered, weird. Then he had an idea. What if the Kami Fun could mimic Kekai Genkai? He turned to Hinata and whispered. And if I could use Byakugan? Sakura raised an eyebrow as Naruto nodded and grinned. Judging from the amount of time you spent with the Mangekyo Sharingan, I think you can only use it for as long as you had eye content. Sakura shook her head. Tricking Sasuke into believing we are cousins or something would be hilarious. Sakura let out a sigh. Naruto grinned and said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Sakura reflected back, considering you were on my team, I'd expect you to have heard stupider from me. He was right, but she still grinned. Naruto sighed, speaking of Sasuke. Naruto remained silent as Sakura interrupted him, saying, I know I asked you to get him back, Naruto, but sometimes, nowadays, I look back and think it would be better without him. I take it you're over your crush on him? Sakura said with a nod, yeah? He chuckled, and to think less than 2 months ago, if you had told me that, I would have jumped at the chance to ask you out. Sakura gave a wink. Yeah. Explain to him the Kekai Genkai law. Sakura's inner voice shouted. What? Sakura asked herself. Baka. If there is only one person with a particular Kekai Genkai, like Kami Fun in this instance, he can have more than one wife. However, Hinata might be prone to jealousy. Shadow clones. Hinata could be a clone and the original could be with you. But shouldn't she at least get the original? She had him first. He's liked you for years, so how would she know the difference? He was liked by Hinata for years. As Sakura argued with herself, Naruto perspired. Hinata groaned and Naruto approached her, saying, Morning, Sleeping Beauty. Hinata grinned. She turned to Sakura and asked, "What is Sakura-san up to?" Naruto gave a shrug. "Who knows?" Sakura eventually relaxed, and Naruto grinned while glancing up at a clock. "Anyone? Tsukemen?" The three shunned Ichiraku's. Naruto ordered 3 while the others ordered a bowl, but Naruto was thinking. "Good thing I have so much chakra." He turned on Kami-fun and scanned the area, saying, "I might have to have it on at all times, just to break the henge so I can see if Madara's around." With the exception of Kakashi, a girl who lived near the hot springs, everyone was themselves other than that unsettling fact. Nothing was unusual. Naruto ate a little while grinning. He was still concerned. Though Madara had the ability to teleport quickly and without seals in actuality, he would only have a realistic chance of defeating him if he entered that interdimensional space-time device to level the playing field. By that point, Naruto had inadvertently consumed 2 bowls. "Hold on, I used my Hirishin seals to punch him, so..." He scowled. "They only last 3 days, and tomorrow it will stop working because I'm too exhausted today. Crap." He almost swore as he glanced at his knuckles. The Hirishin seals' tattoos vanished as the skin on them was torn off. He took a deep breath. Hinata and Sakura nodded and said, "Guys, you're probably wondering who defeated me, right?" Naruto drew a long breath. Sakura nodded icily. "Well, you both know Sasuke, right?" To which Hinata said, "Yes." Naruto raised his gaze to the heavens. Sakura arched an eyebrow and said, "Well, let's just say the Uchihas had more than just him and Itachi." "Who?" Naruto chuckled a little. "Technically, he's a wrinkly old dude." His expression then became grave. "Who has the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, could control Kyuubi, can teleport without seals, and wants to kill me," Hinata said. "But what's his name?" Darkly, Naruto said, "Madara Uchiha." Sakura dropped her glass of water and swallowed in her grasp. Hinata broke hers. Naruto took another look around. "Oh shit, run!" he screamed. Assuming a defensive stance, Madara was sprinting in his direction. His eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was blazing, and he created some strange seals. He yelled, "I'm going wipe you from existence." Madara had to block Naruto's hurried shuriken throw. Madara then gaped in dismay. After saying, You made me not do the final seal. Who knows what might happen?" Naruto was engulfed in a ring of multicolored light. "Baka! Wake up!" cried Sakura. Naruto complained and said, "All right, Sakura-san." He looked at Sakura as he opened his eyes. Her eyes, like his, almost swelled out of his head. "Coolly, you look different." Naruto arched an eyebrow and said, "I look different? You look like you're 16 or something." Sakura's hair appeared untidy and she was even shorter. Naruto took a swallow. He got up and said, "God, what if Madara no, he couldn't have, well, I have to go to my office." Sakura had a perplexed expression. "What office?" Sakura grimaced and said, "The Hokage office." Naruto turned and exclaimed, "Baka! You aren't the Hokage." "Yes I am. I'm the Rokudame." "Baka! There isn't even a Godem yet." "Yes, there was. Tsunade of the Sannin." "Listen, moron. The third is still the Hokage." Naruto stopped. He glanced out the window and said, "Oh god, Madara did. He transported me back in time." He pivoted. "So, I have to go to the preliminaries, right?" Sakura gave a nod to Sakura's horror. Naruto swore angrily, "Right?" Then Naruto became more cheerful. After saying, "Which means Sasuke isn't with Orochimaru yet," he left. Sakura gazed at him in wonder. As Naruto entered the arena, he turned to face the third. He grinned broadly. "And he's alive too." He then jumped down to confront Kiba. After noticing that he was yelling at him, Kiba's eyebrow went up. Naruto grinned and asked, "Where'd you get the cloak?" "I modeled it off of my dad's cloak." Hiruzen became frightened. "Does he know?" he pondered. Naruto grinned. Kiba arched an eyebrow and said, "Kiba, I have a question. What jutsu do you think I know, and what jutsu do I know?" Naruto chuckled and asked, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "You know me as the Dobi, the dead last, the loser, but you don't really know that much about me," replied Naruto. Kiba snarled. He snarled and ran at Naruto, saying, "And I do know that I can kick your ass." With a smile, Naruto extended his hands and used Great Breakthrough, throwing Akamaru and Kiba back. Akamaru and Kiba used Fang over Fang after Kiba growled. After chuckling, Naruto extended his hand and spun in the opposite direction of Kiba and Akamaru, stopping them in their tracks. After that, Naruto produced dozens of shadow clones. He declared, "This match is over, Kiba." Kiba snarled. "Yeah?" Naruto gave a nod. Kiba growled, and Akamaru yipped, "I can detonate any of these shadow clones right now, and you would die. Please forfeit." Kiba Naruto created a tiger seal and one clone violently exploded, raising the question, why should we believe that? Kiba took a swallow. I forfeit. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto exclaimed with a smile before jumping in Hinata's direction. He gave her a hug and said, good luck with your match, Hinata-chan. He then walked to Hiruzen after creating a shadow clone to support her and help her stay upright. He said gravely, we need to talk. The third gave Naruto a spooky look. Naruto sighed and asked, how did you learn those techniques? It's a long story you see. I'm the Naruto of 3 years in the future. During that time, I've learned summoning, pressure damage, great breakthrough, wind cutter, clone great explosion, shuriken shadow clones, Rasengan, Rasen shuriken, Shunshin, Sage Mode, and Godana Kekai Genkai. He skipped the Hiruzen portion so that the Hokage become overly startled. Sarutobi's pipe dropped out of his mouth, but Naruto wasn't done yet. Hiruzen was shocked to hear, also, I've become the boyfriend of Hinata, sealed away Kyuubi, killed multiple members of Akatsuki, and become Hokage. Naruto shook his head and asked, so, you're a time traveler? Hiruzen nodded and then looked twice before saying, no, Madara sent me here on accident. Madara? I'll explain later. Hiruzen appeared contemplative. Naruto appeared perplexed as he asked, well, what do you plan to do now? Well, you, Asuma, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and other people will die, so I want to try to save you guys. Hiruzen exhaled. Well, I have a theory. You want to save us, so in the future, you already have saved us, but since you were the same, that means we died of another cause, creating the same grief, so you performed the same choices to get you to go back in time, meaning that no matter what you do now, the same consequences will occur, Hiruzen said. Naruto was snoring a little after letting out a sigh. Hiruzen snapped his fingers, I'll summarize what you missed. No matter what you do here, nothing will be changed in your time. Naruto exhaled. Hiruzen nodded and asked, so you and Ero Sennin will die? Naruto looked up and said, I'm afraid so. He stood up and left after saying, well, I can at least tell you who kills you, Orochimaru. Hiruzen trembled. Naruto watched with sadness as Neji severely beat Hinata when Neji was ready to deliver her last, fatal blow. Naruto fiercely threw a kunai in their direction and then used the Flying Thunder God technique to drag her away. Neji glared at Naruto and strode away, declaring, due to Hinata being pulled away from the battlefield, the winner is Neji. Naruto gave Hinata a look. Hinata-chan, you're a great ninja, but Neji is way stronger, alright? Said he. Hinata blushed and nodded. Naruto grinned. He kissed her forehead lightly and said, good? Hinata reddened, then passed out with caution. Naruto seated her in the audience. He let out a sigh. He thought, I need to figure out how to get back to my own time. After that, he avoided shining. Sasuke observed Naruto with disinterest. Where did he obtain that ability? Later Sasuke approached Naruto as he was using a few well-placed punches to topple trees. Train me, Dobi. Naruto snapped back, not on your life. There was a big tick mark on Sasuke's head. Naruto grinned. Sasuke growled before charging at Naruto, who merely kicked him into the ground. Your affinities are lightning and fire, mine is wind, so I can't teach you anything. Also, you don't have my chakra level, so you can't use shadow clones. Naruto grinned. Sasuke snarled viciously and then attacked Naruto once more. Sasuke, listen to me. In a few years, you'll be so strong, you're able to beat Itachi and tie with me. After giggling, Naruto dropped every blow Sasuke threw at him and tossed him aside. Even after Naruto threw him into a tree and he crashed through it, Sasuke continued to get up. Naruto let out a sigh. Sasuke shook his head and said, listen, you might be the year's rookie, but I'm an S-ranked ninja. Naruto shrugged and said, Adobe, like you couldn't even be an A-ranked, B-ranked, tops. Coming from you, that's a compliment. Naruto used pressure damage in response to Sasuke's use of Great Fireball. Naruto gave Sasuke a gloomy glance. Sasuke continued to try to attack Naruto, but Naruto retaliated by slamming him hard into the ground and tying him up with ninja wire, saying, you're getting really annoying. Train me, cried Sasuke. Naruto gave him a chilly stare. Later Sakura noticed Sasuke yelling angrily at Naruto while she was strolling through the woods. I have the Sharingan and the Uchiha name. Sasuke chuckled and said, and I have the Kami-Fun and the Uzumaki name. He exclaimed, there's no such thing as the Kami-Fun, before Naruto turned on his Kami-Fun while staring into his eyes regretfully. Sakura was sprinting in Naruto's direction, disregarding his previous words. Baka! Cried Sakura with a sigh. Naruto extended his hand to grab Sakura and raise her. He gave Sakura a cold look. Sakura thrashed around, attempting to punch him, saying, "Sakura, I was stronger than you years ago, imagine how strong I am now." She was flung to the ground by Naruto. Sakura appeared perplexed, and Naruto concluded he was being a little too severe. "Oh. And Sakura, don't bother with Sasuke, he'll probably get stuck with Karen." He pivoted. Sakura asked, looking perplexed, "Sakura, what's your elemental affinity?" Naruto let out a sigh. Sakura appeared irate when she said, "Never mind, most of my jutsu use more chakra than you could ever muster." "What's that supposed to mean?" 10 of the several dozen shadow clones that Naruto created were Rasengans. Naruto gave them a look. He then collapsed to the ground, regurgitated, and watched as the world whirled around him. If you made one shadow clone, you'd probably die of chakra exhaustion. If you attempted to make a Rasengan, you'd die halfway through making it. Naruto moaned before realizing he was inside a strange dome. He raised his head. He exhaled. No, Haku was the one. He shouted, "Haku-san! We don't need to fight," and forgot what the third had said. Haku let out a gasp. Naruto shook his head and asked, "How do you know my name?" Haku swallowed, nodded, and released the jutsu. "It's a long story. Listen, Haku, why not join Konoha? Zabuza might be in danger now too, so if you'd let me free, I'll protect him." Naruto screamed, "Kakashi," and leapt for 2 figures in the fog. He quickly took Kakashi's hand and threw him to the ground. He inhaled, "Naruto Minato?" Naruto gave a headshake. Kakashi's eyes narrowed, and he tried to get to his feet, but Naruto stopped him. "No, I'm Naruto," and he pointed to Gato, saying, "Is Gato?" Kakashi nodded wearily and said, "I'll take care of him, as I have full chakra. You're probably exhausted." Naruto turned to face the crowd of people rushing in his direction. Naruto stopped Haku from pulling out some senbon. Naruto said, "I'll take care of this, Haku-san." Haku gave a nod. "Oh, and Naruto?" I lied." As of right now, Naruto had eliminated practically every one of Gato's men. "About what?" Haku grinned. "I'm a girl." Naruto then moaned as the world began to warp once more. When is this nightmare going to end? Naruto was in a forest when he woke up. It seems that Haku was a girl then. Above him, he saw Iruka, who shuddered and looked extremely hurt. Naruto was aware of this. He would use shadow clones to protect Iruka from Mizuki. Or he would have, had he not been aware of some more effective methods. He gently put Iruka down. After carefully removing the enormous shuriken, he activated his Kami-Fun and cast a gloomy glance at Mizuki. Mizuki hurried over to him. "Die, demon." After throwing him to the ground, Naruto broke his nose by stepping on his face. He regarded him icily. Mizuki howled in pain as he asked, "You want a demon?" With a comparatively small amount of murderous intent. Grinning, he gradually added more and more. He turned away from the desire to kill and faced Iruka. He inquired, "Are you alright?" Iruka gave a weary nod with a smile. Naruto turned back to face Mizuki while holding a Rasengan. Mizuki swayed back and forth as she looked up. Shaking his head, Naruto asked, "Yellow flash?" "Not quite." Mizuki screamed uncannily before collapsing, unconscious. After he slammed the Rasengan into her, Naruto gave a pitiful smile. After adding wind chakra to a kunai and throwing it, he grabbed Iruka and used Hirishin to get close to the hospital. He then handed Iruka to a nurse who hurried outside to see who had thrown a kunai into a wall. "Yandaime." She inhaled deeply. A scream was heard abruptly, and numerous women, between the ages of 20 and 35, rushed towards Naruto in an attempt to touch, feel, or otherwise interact with him. Naruto took a swallow. "Who are they?" The nurse also swallowed. Naruto fainted and hurled another kunai higher on the building, which he Hirishined to. The Minato fan club, the only fan club to have more members than the Itachi fan club, which had 80 members. "Get down here!" cried Enko. Naruto swallowed. "I swear, I'm not Asuma's girlfriend." Kurenai begged. Naruto cast his gaze downward. He would have released the kunai he was clinging to for dear life if he had been roughly twice as old as he is now. He shouted, "I'm Naruto, not Minato." After laughing, Enko leapt up to him, began removing his clothes with a kunai, then cut his cheek and licked the blood off it. "With how you look, I really don't care who you are," she was purring. "Kill me now." Naruto pondered. After experiencing a sinking sensation, he teleported once more to an unknown location. Enko whimpered, "Ah, come on, I almost had him. I'm about to lose my mind." Naruto thought inside the rift between time and space. He rolled onto his stomach. "I'm already crazy, so forget about that. What rational person would think that this is actually taking place?" He turned around. "I've observed that every strong person appears to have flaws. The Provenus of Jiraiya and Kakashi, Tsunade's anger management problems, Pain's ego, Madara's ego, and Orochimaru's pedophilia. He shuddered at the thought. I wonder what my dad was like. Then he noticed a dazzling light. Here we go once more. Naruto surveyed his surroundings. He was certain that he was in a cave, but he was unsure of the precise location. Then he noticed a young boy on the ground, with another boy attempting to push him aside as a whole bunch of boulders came their way. Naruto leapt in their direction and raised both of his hands in the air. He shouted, "Pressure damage!" After the rocks broke, Naruto shot the fragments away with a great breakthrough. He turned to see a man without a forehead protector cowering in the cave's corner. He looked at a boy wearing strange goggles similar to his old ones. Darkly, he asked, "Was he the one that hurt you?" The boy gave a nod. Naruto drenched in sweat and said, "Yes, Minato-sensei. I'm not Minato, I'm his son from the future. Think about this, Minato is lightning affinity. I used a wind jutsu." The kid nodded. After grinning, Naruto made a Rasengan and used a Hirshin seal to throw a kunai. The man wet himself after gazing down at the kunai. Yellow flash. Naruto snarled, "Damn, I'm so tired of being called my dad's name. I'm gonna make my name so famous, people won't even know who my dad was." And he sent the man flying after slamming the Rasengan into him. Naruto grinned before turning to see a boy with black hair, a girl who oddly resembled Sakura, and what appeared to be a miniature Kakashi staring up at him. Naruto gave them a look. "What are your names?" "It's me, Rin, Minato-sensei." "I'm not Minato. I'm Kakashi, and yes, you are Minato-sensei. You have a leaf headband in your battle cloak and aren't under a henge." "I said I'm not Minato. I'm Obito, and why do you have red chakra?" "Long story." Obito gave a nod. Naruto sighed as he turned to face the three. Obito smiled. Rin nodded joyfully, and Kakashi shrugged when he asked, "Well, while we were waiting for something to happen, how'd you like to learn a new jutsu?" "Okay. What you do is you make this seal, then." Later Minato shouted, "Obito, Rin, Kakashi, where are you guys?" "Over here, sensei." With a sigh of relief, Minato sprinted in the direction of Obito's voice. His mouth fell open. 20 Kakashis, 10 Obitos, 3 Rin, and a young man who might have been his twin were all staring back at him. Naruto stood up straight. Minato looked at him and slowly raised a finger, saying, "Oh, Minato-senpai, I wasn't expecting you for a while." Who are you?" he stammered out. Naruto gave a shrug. Minato swallowed. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, your son." "My son? Oh god. I thought I wore weight. Uzumaki Namikaze? I get married to Kushina?" Naruto grinned. Minato let out a scream. With an eyebrow raise, Naruto exclaimed, "No." Minato gave him a horrified look. Naruto chuckled and said, "She beats me up every day of my life." "You're the Hokage, and you're scared of your soon-to-be wife?" Naruto began yelling with laughter and then saw that Kakashi, Obito, and Rin also appeared frightened. "If she's about to be my wife, hell yeah, I'm scared," Naruto exclaimed. He questioned, "Is something wrong?" Rin spoke up, Kakashi nodded, and Obito simply passed out. "She is nightmarish. She is as scary as Kyuubi." Naruto arched an eyebrow. Rin's eyes nearly burst out of her skull as she said, "Scary as Kyuubi? I have that stupid fox sealed in my stomach." Minato took Naruto by the shoulder. "How do I know you're a Namikaze?" Naruto turned to face him in response, one eye a Sharingan and the other Kami Fun. Minato staggered backwards. Naruto grinned. Minato sighed, sat down, and motioned for Naruto to follow suit, saying, "Don't be scared, Dad." He cleared his throat. "Naruto." Minato questioned, "So what jutsu do you know?" Naruto reflected, "I can see where I get my talent in conversation from. Yours, along with pressure damage, great breakthrough, wind cutter, shadow clones, clone great explosion, and shuriken shadow clones." Minato gave a nod. "So you are at the very least Anbu captain level, likely Hokage level Godem?" Rokudame Godem is Tsunade. Ah, Obito, Rin, and Kakashi were obviously utterly perplexed. Obito muttered, "What are they talking about?" In response, Kakashi muttered, "I have no idea." Then Minato got up and brushed himself clean. "Well, it was very interesting to meet you, son. Would you be interested in coming back to Konoha with us?" Naruto nodded. Tragically, Naruto uttered, "I'm afraid I have to go again." Then he disappeared, saying, "Nice to meet you, Dad." Minato gave a nod. "Kushina and I are getting married?" Kami later. When Minato spotted Kushina, he began to walk back to camp with his group. "Hey, Baka. Come on over here," she shouted. Minato swallowed and turned slowly, anticipating a thrashing, when, after giving him a kiss that left him stunned, Kushina smiled and pulled away, causing Minato to lose consciousness. Kushina shrugged before beginning to drag him to her tent. I apologize, but since this is only rated T, there won't be a lemon. With a sigh, Naruto said, here we go again, but where to now? He turned on his back and saw a light. Okay, here I come, he thought sadly, I might never see Hinata-chan again or my other friends. He looked around, but he really didn't know where he was. Then he was knocked back to his feet by a big explosion, and he slowly turned to see the Valley of the End, where Madara was on the Kyuubi. The first was using wood, and the first's Mokuden was much stronger than Yamato's. The Hokage then noticed him. Stop getting in the way, child, he shouted, and Madara turned, beaming maniacally, and grabbed Naruto with one of Kyuubi's tails. Naruto flinched as the tail broke one of his ribs, but Kyuubi fixed it, and then the tail carried him to Madara, who seized him while putting a kunai to his throat. Darkly, he said, give up or the boy dies. Naruto laughed and summoned his Kami-fun. Madara, you are going to cause me a lot of problems in the future. I'll kill you now. He uttered those words, and his great wind armor materialized. Then Madara was viciously slashed by wind tendrils, and when he flinched, Naruto kicked him back before using Great Breakthrough. Madara spat up some blood laced with saliva, his face cut and his hair stringy, and Naruto thought, he must not have developed his weird teleport jutsu yet. Naruto then ran to punch Madara. He hissed, goddamn brat. He then launched a stream of fire, which Naruto managed to avoid, but the Kyuubi caught him in two of its tails. Naruto transformed his armor into blades, which cut the Kyuubi's tails into chakra long enough for Naruto to get away. Go! Hashirama shouted, and Naruto turned to face him, beaming. Not at all. I am the Rokudame, and I will always persevere. That's how I ninja. Naruto flipped back, only to have Madara nearly smash him into the ground. He ducked another attack and said, now that I think about it, maybe I should have started by removing my weights while using clones to absorb Sage Chakra, then activated Sage Mode, then used this as a last resort, and if I had no other choice, used Kyuubi. He then ran at Madara very quickly, removing his weights, and punched him, sending him flying. Madara threw a bunch of kunai, and Naruto threw one in between them, striking Madara as the kunai thrown at Naruto flew away due to the wind. What a fool! Kyuubi is going to go crazy if I lose my focus. Naruto swallowed as Madara screamed. As the fox screamed, he said, oh yeah. Naruto winced, then sighed in relief as Hashirama contained it. He wished he had known about sealing jutsu at the time, but he smiled and threw a group of kunai, which he multiplied by a jutsu when Madara staggered out of the woods. Naruto used Hirishin to beat him into the ground, then switched places with a clone, which exploded. Then gaped as Madara stood up and screamed angrily, I'm going to kill you, bitch. When Naruto saw Madara displaying his Mangekyo Sharingan, he yelled, Amaterasu. Madara snarled, then jumped at Naruto, smashing a fist into him. Naruto rolled back, then lunged forward, grabbing Madara by the neck and jumping off the cliff. He screamed, sending a wave of black fire at Naruto. Naruto released all of his wind armor in a huge blast, which blew the flames backwards. Madara's eyes widened, almost popping out of his skull. Madara spat in Naruto's face, then used his momentary discomfort to kick his way out. Naruto snarled, then flipped onto his feet, throwing some shuriken, which Madara blocked with a blast of water. He spat out. Naruto then jumped at Madara, swinging a fist at him. Madara was simultaneously choking Naruto and was about to make him splatter on the jagged rocks they were falling towards. Maybe this is all a big paradoxa. I was using weights, so that might have inspired Madara to, and Hirishin could have inspired his teleportation jutsu. Naruto shook his head, then kicked him in the temple as he grabbed his fist, causing him to fall. Naruto then grabbed Samahata and swung down, causing him to grimace before halting the giant blade with two kunai. Naruto grimaced and swung again, but was stopped by wood. Listen, boy, we cannot kill Uchiha, it would start a war, Naruto grumbled. He grudgingly said, fine, Hokage-sama. Had he killed Madara, he might not have ended up in this mess, but he clutched his head and said, but then again, if I killed him, I would never gone back in time to kill him, so I wouldn't have killed him. I guess it's time to go back in time again, he said, cracking his neck as he felt another tug. Damn, I hate time travel. Naruto arched an eyebrow, realizing that he was no longer in the past, but not that far. In fact, he knew that he was in the past, and he recognized both the jutsu in his hand and his adversary, Kakuzu. Naruto leapt back, then stood motionless, rapidly accumulating Sage Chakra. Kakuzu smiled, launching a wind and fire blast at him. Naruto then threw the Rasen Shuriken, and attempted to stop him from moving with the intent to kill. Kakuzu leapt into the air, and Naruto quickly used pressure damage to blow the giant inferno that was coming backwards. He then looked up at Kakuzu, who sent deadly threads at him. He leapt up, then threw a shuriken, multiplied it with shuriken shadow clones. He was struck several times, and Naruto kicked him in the air to head for the ground. Naruto then bounded over to Shikamaru, who had arrived languidly. "Shikamaru, I need you to add your shadow chakra to my Rasen shuriken." Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome, nevertheless, Naruto smiled and raised his jutsu, saying, "Rasen shadow. If that thing hits me, I'm not only dead, I'm gone from existence." Kakuzu swallowed. Naruto turned to face Kakuzu. "Kakuzu-san, I'd say you've been on this earth for a little too long." Straightening up, Kakuzu choked, coughing up a little blood as a Rasenrengen slammed into his back, and Naruto threw his Rasen shadow. He looked blearily at it before screaming as it began to tear him apart, shearing him into two pieces that began violently spurting blood, his organs being shredded apart, releasing their contents of partially digested food and bile. Naruto's clones grimaced as gore spat all over their clothing, and Naruto himself winced. He turned, his eyes dark with faint gray lines beneath them. He had traveled through time more than 20 times and had been awake for more than 30 hours. He saw Sai, Sakura, Shikamaru, Ino, Yamato, Kakashi, and Choji staring at him in amazement. "This jutsu may be my deadliest," he thought, glancing at the heap of blood and stray threads that had once been Kakuzu, "but it's also my most gruesome." "Minato?" thought Yamato and Kakashi. "Wow, Sakura." Shikamaru said, "I guess Naruto is now a ranked." Ino said, "Oh my god, Naruto looks hot." "Holy shit," said Choji. Sai. "Not bad, Dickless, Danzo-sama will want to learn about this." "You probably want an explanation, right?" Naruto sighed. He inquired, and Yamato gave a nod. "This was faster than before. You've gone from Chunin level with a cage level of chakra to Jonin level." Naruto sighed, opened his mouth, and felt something. He was perplexed. "I apologize, I must leave," he said when Naruto heard screams and the sounds of people running. He stood up tiredly and looked around, but no one was there. He picked up a piece of paper on the ground and was fascinated. His jaw dropped. Some of the paper was ripped off, but he could read. Name: Uzumaki, Naruto Namikaze, 16 years old, Kami Fun from Kekai Genkai. Present position: Hokage, Rokudame. Weight-based taijutsu. High A, faded away. Kenjutsu. Low S ranked, Samahata Ninjutsu. Windcutter, flying, faded, great wind armor, futon pressure damage, great bridge, torn off. SS ranked, Hirishin, Sage mode, summoning, Rasengan, Shuriken shadow clones. Clone grade explosion. Shadow C. Ripped off, and other shunshin. Genjutsu. C-ranked henge can break any genjutsu and has a killing intent similar to that of genjutsu. Comments: Naruto is an SS or even SSS ranked ninja, the likes of which haven't been seen since the Sage of Six Paths. He can use his wind to be deadly at medium range and summon large toads to perform combination attacks. He can also use clones for close range. A large section is torn off, for both offense and defense, and as a last resort which he hasn't used recently, he can use the nine-tailed fox if you see him. While he is quite merciful, do not engage in combat because you will not survive. Bounty: 1 billion Ryo, turning into Such, ripped off. Achievements: became Hokage and was killed, torn off. Whistling: Naruto glanced around before beginning to move down the eerily quiet street, asking, "Is anyone here?" He called out, but no one answered, so he looked around. It was as quiet as a grave. But then a man in a black cloak and a black mask, with a black ponytail on his head, jumped in front of him, making the area appear darker in some way. The man drew a short sword, less than 2 feet long, and Naruto swiftly created some clones. The man glanced around, then snapped his fingers, dispelling all of the clones. Secret art: shadow homicide technique. Naruto blinked, and while he was sure the man was at least high Jonin level, he charged at him anyway. The man cracked his knuckles slowly before whispering, "I found him. This guy appears to be well rested and has good techniques, and I wasted a lot of chakra on previous battles." The enigmatic figure then transformed into a murder of crows, circling Naruto, saying, "I'm a goner." Naruto groaned. "Damn. I find this fight troublesome too, Naruto-san." Troubles? Then Naruto lost consciousness. Naruto arrived gradually and then turned to look around. A medic nin was bandaging him and tending to him. A pink-haired medic nin mouthing. Naruto said, "Sakura?" She nodded and turned with a sorrowful smile. Naruto looked around. He saw Lee, Tenten, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, Kiba, and Shino. "Wa, what are you doing here? And why haven't I traveled back in time?" Shino said, "I think I can answer that. I've been draining all of your chakra so you can't time travel, because you would obviously need chakra to do a jutsu, and time travel could be considered a jutsu. Naruto grinned, then he let out a sigh. So how long have I been gone? Shikamaru remarked, about 3 years, Naruto, and a lot has changed. I've learned more shadow techniques, and jutsu involving crows. Ino learned interrogation. Shoji started working out and is now the most athletic of all of us. Akamaru died, so Kiba started training in his elements of earth and water. Shino is, or was the leader of the Aburame clan. Tenten became an S rank in Kenjutsu, and Lee surpassed Gai-sensei. Naruto sighed. Wonderful. No, not really, because we only did these things to survive. And I haven't told you the bad things, Shikamaru went on. Naruto took a swallow. Danzo became Hokage once you were gone, and began massacring all of the Jonin and Shunin. Kurenai, Kakashi, even Gai Anko and Iruka managed to get away, but we haven't heard from them since. Konohamaru managed to kill Sai when he was forced to attack everyone, but then he was killed too. The tears began to stream down Naruto's face. Sasuke then attacked the village, leveling it and killing Neji, to prove that the Uchiha were superior to the Hyuga. In fact, he killed almost all of their clan. Naruto's tears filled his eyes. He killed Gaara, Kankuro, and almost killed Temari, along with many academy students. Naruto questioned, but what about Hinata? Shikamaru's expression darkened even further. Naruto, you were the light in her dark world, and when you left, she sunk into a deep depression. Danzo being Hokage and Hanabi and her other relatives dying didn't help. He exhaled deeply. She was found one day hanging from a tree in the forest of death. Naruto's eyes were watering as he stared at him blankly. Then Shikamaru felt the slightest bit of Kyuubi chakra as he growled darkly. He said, "Take me back. If we could, we would." Naruto yelled, "Take me the fuck back." As his bugs were fried, Shikamaru flinched, and Shino unintentionally released Naruto as Kyuubi chakra began tearing apart Naruto's skin. He let out a scream, then he was gone. Now Naruto was completely bewildered. He appeared to be in a pitch-black emptiness. Then someone approached him with the Rinnegan and a necklace, but he was unable to identify anything else that would set him apart. "Naruto," was all he said. Naruto blinked. "Who?" He took Naruto's hand and said, "The Sage of Six Paths, come." As the sage appeared to move forward into emptiness, Naruto trailed behind him. The sage paused at one point. Naruto shrugged and asked, "Naruto, how do you feel?" "Sad, I suppose. I mean, I now don't get to see Hinata-chan again. But at least I'm not dead." The sage gave a nod. "Naruto, how do you expect to solve this problem?" Once more, Naruto shrugged. The sage sadly shook his head and said, "I'm hoping you could use some Rinnegan jutsu to propel me into the future." Naruto arched an eyebrow and said, "No, I'm afraid you will have to do something slightly unorthodox." "Like?" Naruto choked and said, "Activate the Kami-Fun, then kill yourself." "What?" Naruto nodded, activated his Kami-Fun, and bowed to the sage. "Your time traveling will make you immortal, because you no longer exist. However, if you kill yourself, you would reset your existence. Then, your Kami-Fun, well, it is literally translated to element god, so I'm sure it shall do something." The sage grinned and nodded, saying, "Thank you, Sage of Six Paths. Don't mention it." Additionally, Naruto pierced his skull with a kunai. Then everything in his world began to spin wildly. The second power out of 3 resurrection echoed in his mind. Naruto weakly stood up and then weakly threw up. He saw the worried and relieved faces of Sakura and Hinata. When he looked up, he inquired, "What happened?" Naruto nodded before wiping his bile-covered lip. "Well, Madara seemed almost to die, then he teleported just as you came to." "Great." Somewhere Nagato was sleeping when Madara appeared beside him. "Nagato, I need your help." Calmly, Nagato said, "I bet you do." Madara arched an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Nagato let out a sigh. "That boy, Naruto, he was also a student of my sensei. He wanted for there to be peace." Yeah, anyways, I was hoping you could. So did Conan. War isn't a necessity, really, so why do we excel at war? Nagato. After creating a seal, Nagato concluded, "So, I am going to make peace." He shouted, "Samsara of heavenly life technique." Then, for the last time, he fell. In Konoha. Oh, startled, Kakashi turned. He was speaking to Obito when he swore he heard 2 voices coming from the coffins. He approached them carefully and opened them with shadow clones. His mouth fell open. Tsunade and Shizune were alive and stirring. He took a swallow. Tsunade groaned feebly. "Tsunade senpai, Shizune-chan." Shizune blushed and said, "I really need some sake." Was I just referred to as Shizune-chan by him? God, I thought I lost you for forever. Kakashi said as he approached Shizune and embraced her. Anko hissed as a kunai was then placed to Kakashi's throat. Kakashi swallowed and said, "Don't even consider cheating on me, Kakashi-kun. However, I'm not your type. Why don't you go out with Iruka?" he begged, and Anko let out a sigh. "All right, however, just so you know, I was finally going to have sex with you today," Kakashi shrugged. "And allow you to use chains and whips to torment me? No way," Anko winked. After saying, "You know you would have liked it," she turned away. When Iruka felt someone grab him while he was tidying up the classroom, he tensed up and said, "Ah, you feel so stiff," a purring voice said. "I think I'll help you to loosen up." "Anko-senpai?" After asking, Iruka turned to see Anko taking off his pants and her coat. Iruka swallowed and attempted to move away, but Anko caught him. "Not so quick. You're going to make me feel good because I'm incredibly aroused today." Iruka began to scream. Sakura said goodbye to Naruto with a smile, and the two of them began to walk. Naruto, my home is that way," Hinata said after Naruto had led her past her house. He looked into Hinata's lavender eyes and said, "I know." Hinata raised an eyebrow, and Naruto halted and turned to face her. "The things I've seen made me appreciate life more, and made me think of how much time we have on this earth." Hinata's eyes were puzzled, but then realization ignited. "Hinata, I know it seemed like I was only out for a few seconds, but I actually was in an odd time loop that lasted for days, and I had to kill myself to be alive." "Naruto?" she muttered, and Naruto grinned before embracing her and planting a kiss. The Hyuga household. Since Hinata's tardiness was simply unacceptable, Hiyashi activated his Byakugan and scanned the area. Finding nothing for 300 meters, he grunted and then pursued more chakra into his dojutsu. Scanning for 600 meters before spotting a massive chakra signature, he was intrigued and looked at it, but half wished he hadn't. He cracked his neck and said, "I'm going to have a talk with my daughter." Fortunately for Naruto and Hinata, he didn't sound angry or surprised. "The Hokage is with my oldest daughter," he said. As they left behind the building, holding hands and feeling more in love than ever, Naruto and Hinata arrived at the Hyuga manor, where he kissed her and left. Hinata entered the building joyfully, feeling weightless, and Hiyashi said, "Hinata-san, sit down." Gravity seemed to set in for Hinata, and Hiyashi gave her a serious look. "Why were you with Hokage-sama?" Hinata swallowed. "I'm not upset, however. You now must be married, and since the male Kekkei Genkai is usually dominant, Hanabi shall become the Hyuga heir." Hinata looked up. After shaking his head, Hiyashi asked, "You aren't angry?" "You see, the Kami-Fun is a dojutsu that is almost as strong as the Rinnegan, almost, because while the Kami-Fun can create techniques, it drains a lot of chakra, while the Rinnegan has a set of special techniques, but uses almost no chakra. And if the Kami-Fun could fuse with the Byakugan, Konoha would certainly prosper." Hinata smiled and nodded. In response, Hiyashi nodded, "Thank you, father." Somewhere Naruto noticed another person ascending the stairs to the Hokage office. As he was making his way there, he growled. Then, with his knuckles cracked, he ran to his office and said, "Not this time, Madara." He punched the enigmatic figure. After leaping at it, Naruto flipped back and lunged again after the hooded and cloaked figure quickly blocked the blow. "Naruto. Stop." "Hell no, Madara." "Madara?" the individual asked. Flipping off her hood after swallowing, Naruto said, "It's me, Tsunade." "Oh, why are you here?" Tsunade chuckled, "To take over as Hokage." "What? When you were dead, I killed Pain again, killed Kisame, learned a whole shitload of jutsu, got a Kekkei Genkai, and oh my god, you're alive," he yelled while hugging her. Tsunade laughed. "So, you're now Hokage, eh?" Naruto smiled after saying, "Hell yeah." Tsunade punched him. Naruto laughed sheepishly and said, "You shouldn't swear around ladies." "Sorry." Tsunade was then attacked by a pink-haired blur. Sakura exclaimed joyfully, "Tsunade-sensei." While sobbing, Tsunade grinned. Naruto grinned and said, "Hello, Sakura, it's good to see you." He then turned and headed for his office. Naruto turned and asked, "Naruto, where are you going?" "To assign every high-ranked Jonin except for Kurenai a certain mission." "And what might that be?" Naruto nibbled on his lip, "To retrieve Sasuke." Sakura squinted her eyes. Naruto nodded and said, "Why? He's just a traitor. And he was one of our friends. People can change." "Oh, yeah, people can change all right." He changed from an angsty emo who had a bit of a heart to a crazy, heartless, S-ranked killer. Naruto gave her a look. "Sakura, he could change." "Could?" was her exclamation. Naruto gave her a sorrowful glance. "Sakura-chan!" she roared. "Don't Sakura-chan me!" and hurried off with a sigh. Naruto ascended to his office. Tsunade thought, I'm beginning to regret not just staying in heaven. While Naruto finished his ramen, Kakashi, Guy, Shizune, Anko, and Tsunade were waiting in his office when he was finished. He examined each one. Okay, we're all here to do an S-rank mission to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha. Anko asked, may I ask why? Yes, as I have noticed Sasuke's youthful flames were at a minimum when he was here, so imagine what the unyouthful Orochimaru has done to him, Guy went on. Yeah, I had hoped Sasuke would be like Obito, but I suppose he was just like the average Uchiha. Kakashi groaned. Shizune stated, I wasn't really that fond of that guy. According to Tsunade, me neither. Yeah, I know, but the council would like it, and he was my friend, and the last part of Team 7, those who abandon the mission are trash, and those who abandon their teammates are worse than trash. Naruto said as he left the room. He swiveled a little, and this fits both. Kakashi didn't say anything. His own words had been used against him by Naruto. He let out a sigh. I don't know about you, but I'm going to help Naruto. Shizune remarked, well, if you're going, I am too. Besides, you'll need a medic nin. I know almost all of Orochimaru's tricks, so I could be useful. Anko replied, shame the kid had to join that snake bastard though. For the first time in his life, Guy sounded serious as he said, Yash, I'll go. I'll go, like Shizune said. You'll need a medic nin, Tsunade replied. The others jumped when Naruto said, good, then let's get moving. He swung out the window and made his way to the gates. The others came soon after. Naruto turned to them when they got there. He turned once more and left Konohagakure after the others said, do we all have weapons and full chakra? Soldier pills? Hi, Naruto. Kakashi, what? Are you even aware of Sasuke's location? After a face failure, Naruto stood up and said, no, but we'll find out. He sent a shadow clone off to find a temporary Hokage and then carried on, with the others following closely behind. After a day, they had just arrived late at night because Naruto had insisted on heading to the Sound Village earlier. They quickly set up camp, cooked some small rabbits Kakashi had speared with some kunai over a small fire, and ate in silence while watching sound as the lights went out. Then, Naruto got up and crept slowly in the direction of the village. Naruto. After Tsunade hissed, Naruto waved her away and made a few shadow clones. Tsunade moaned as the Naruto group left for the village. Naruto, what are you doing? She asked herself. Alongside Naruto under a henge, Naruto was ambling through the streets when he spotted a ramen shop. He joyfully ran to it and ordered nearly all of the ramen they had before leaving the owner stunned by the enormous stack of ryos in front of him. Then, he became serious once more and found a large tower that he suspected was the home of the village leader. He threw a kunai at it, then Hirushine towards it, stuck to the wall, then stealthily climbed it up, and when he spotted his target sitting at a desk, he leapt in his direction, holding a kunai to the man's throat before leaning in towards him. Sasuke Uchiha is where? He whispered in a hoarse voice, and the man swallowed. I'm not sure, he said, and Naruto put the kunai to his throat without cutting it. Tell me, with a harsh tone, he said, I don't. After that, Sasuke flew into the window, dropped a piece of paper, and changed into a murder of crows. Naruto picked it up and flipped it over, reading, I'm near aim. He threw the exploding tag, which exploded, and said, oh shit. He then flipped out of the window, leaving the man in the tower. At the camp, all of the Jonin at the camp appeared a little tense as Naruto approached them. What the hell was that explosion? Gaki? Naruto disregarded Anko as she spoke. That isn't important anyway. Aim is where Sasuke is reign, which is fantastic because Madara, who is stronger than any of us, is most likely also present. How about you get Madara while we take care of Sasuke? You beat him last time, as far as I can recall, Kakashi remarked. No, I drove him away last time, Naruto replied. There's a difference. Naruto turned to face Guy, who said, well, then we shall distract Madara long enough for you to retrieve Sasuke, then you can help us beat Madara. Whoa, you never mentioned youth, lotuses, or anything similar. I know you probably think I'm crazy when I talk about the flames of youth, Guy said with a laugh. Naruto nodded. Well, I have emotional outbursts all the time because the flames of youth are actually a type of chakra that can be enhanced by emotion. You can only close the second gate with the flames of youth, yes, Kakashi-san. What? Anyway, youth chakra can even be molded by someone with a difficult to mold chakra, if they are emotional enough, Guy said after he straightened up after making a face fail. Naruto's expression changed to one of realization. That's why you taught Lee. Grinning, Guy said, exactly, the following day. When Naruto stopped, Most of the Jonin stumbled over their own feet as they were all jumping towards aim. I think this is where Sasuke is, he said. How come you would say that? Oh, Enko said sheepishly, and Naruto turned to face them. Naruto pointed to a big stone and metal fortress that had a hawk and a Uchiha fan on it. Okay. Guys, I need you to divert Madara's attention, and don't say I'm in the village, because then he'll destroy it again. Tsunade nodded, and the Jonin all fled. Naruto turned and bounded toward the fortress, which had steel walls and a huge, 20-foot-tall door. He placed some explosive tags on the walls, then leapt back and created a seal. All of the tags detonated, and Naruto ran toward the walls, only to watch them self-healing before he saw something on the door. Dead last. The door is unlocked. Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto dissolved into a sweat. He kicked open the door and muttered, of course, then he yelled as a wave of kunai narrowly missed him. Yes, Naruto-san, I could have killed you there, you see, but no, I want to murder you myself. Naruto snarled and entered after hearing a voice say, but, I have no problem with hurting you, and nearly killing you. You see, Naruto, this little funhouse of mine will delay you enough and weaken you to the point where I will win no matter what. Naruto said, coward. He then proceeded forward once more, tripped over a cord, and screamed as he almost fell into a razor wire pit before fortunately flipping over and using chakra to stick to the wall. Coward, after you almost beat my sensei, can you really blame me? I beat your senseis Kakashi and Orochimaru. I mean my new sensei, Madara-sama. With a grunt, Naruto emerged from the hole, cautiously surveyed his surroundings, and then leapt backwards before becoming entangled in a net. Come on, he let out a scream. Naruto snarled, activated Great Wind Armor, and began flying around the fortress, avoiding flying arrows, falling weights, nets, and big boulders. Sasuke said dryly, some ninja you are. Teme. Where are you? He shouted. One speaker said, here. Another, in a slightly irrational tone, said, no, here. It's not possible to hide forever. Naruto growled. He created dozens of shadow clones with Great Wind Armor after that. It's true, however, you also can't use that much chakra indefinitely. Naruto responded with a snort, but he knew Sasuke was correct. He needed to work fast because he was only using around 1/48 of his chakra per clone. Armada Jutsu Naruto. As all of the Narutos began flying around in search of Sasuke, he yelled. This is going to take an eternity, moaned Naruto as one clone dispelled, and he thought it had found something, but it had actually been stabbed through the lungs with a spear. This was followed by another dispelling, with a nail through its skull. Alongside the Jonin, Kakashi silently pointed to a big tower in a megacure, and all of the Jonin went there. Suddenly, Madara emerged from the tower. Where is the host of the Kyuubi? He stated plainly. The Gaki shouldn't be called that. He has a name, you know, Anko snarled. When people are dead, why bother calling them by their names? Madara said, cracking his neck. I really do not care. Madara sighed before teleporting away as Tsunade lunged at him, foaming at the mouth and attempting to kill him. I used to be able to teleport every 2 or 3 seconds, but now I can only do so every 7 because that little bastard cut open my eye when it had the Sharingan active. Since you're all against me, you might end up tying. Then he turned to them, and Kakashi began beating him until the last few seconds passed and Madara teleported. You know, every Mangekyo Sharingan has unique techniques. Like I give a shit, Anko growled under his breath. In any case, teleportation is one of my special abilities. He made a seal and said, sadly, I haven't named it yet. He acknowledged that Itachi Susanoo was superior, but this defeats both Tsukiyomi and Amaterasu. Then, as Madara's right eye began to bleed a little, he looked at them and whispered, time for you all to die. Then, the air around Shizune shimmered, rippling like water, and Shizune gasped before trying to move out of the way but failing due to a broken leg. Then, a giant wave of sheer energy shot from Madara, tearing apart the earth and forcing all of the Jonin back, along with a few broken bones. The ground exploded into a huge crater, carrying her away in a white blur, and Shizune fainted before Kakashi carefully placed her down while Guy blocked Madara's view and turned to face Madara. You see, my method functions somewhat similarly to Chibaku Tensai, but in reverse anything within 10 meters of it is violently repelled. Additionally, you will be blown to bloody ruins. If you are in the center of it you would sustain a few shrapnel wounds and broken bones at its edge, Madara stated coolly. Madara-senpai, but can you match this? That technique is impressive, no doubt about it, he said, and that is all there is to taijutsu. Then he dropped his weights. Those are so heavy, I couldn't even carry them. How could he use those without either shattering his bones or shredding his muscles? Madara wondered. When the weights hit the tower, the entire structure broke and began to fall. Madara grimaced. then his clothes folded in several places. Sending him flying. Guy appeared to be shimmering as Madara began to be battered to a pulp. Then he growled and used his intangibility technique, causing him to collapse 20 feet away while spitting up blood and a few teeth despite his severe bruises. Madara staggered over to Guy's motionless body and drew a big sword. Kakashi gaped in horror as he stabbed Guy through the chest, pulled out the glistening blade, and then stabbed once more. "Guy, you will pay," he shouted, turning to face Madara with tears running down his cheeks. He screamed and ran towards Madara, who just laughed. Returning to Naruto after all but 2 of his clones were vanquished, Naruto discovered a door and cautiously opened it to reveal a spacious, empty room before cautiously entering. "Ah. Finally, Naruto Dobi," Sasuke's voice said, and Naruto grinned. "Are you prepared to fight at last?" he inquired. "Me? No Jugo." "Yes, Jugo," asked Naruto. Then he was sent flying when a giant, stronger than Tsunade, crashed into him. After slowly rising, Naruto was struck once more after firing his clones at Jugo. Naruto caused the tiger to seal, which caused the clones to detonate. But this time, the fireball was bigger, and Naruto could also feel the wind coming from it. A soldier pill was popped into Naruto's mouth. At least 1/100th of his maximum chakra had already been depleted after being punched once more. He flipped back, drew Samahata, and charged at Jugo. Jugo grabbed the enormous blade as he swung it using only his hands. When Jugo grunted and released his grip, Naruto added wind chakra and grinned. After that, Naruto used great breakthrough to push Jugo away. When Jugo charged at him, he struck him with a fist before hitting Samahata. As he swung the sword, cleaving through Jugo's neck, Naruto gazed sorrowfully into his eyes after falling to the ground. Jugo's vision became blurry as he turned to face Naruto. Naruto swallowed. "Kimimaro, I hope I made you proud. I detest murder," he thought. However, after another door opened, Sasuke was seen idly sitting in a chair and gazing at Naruto. He had a katana in his hand and was dressed in an Akatsuki cloak. His eyes were hidden by his hair. "About time, Naruto." With a silent challenge to attack, Sasuke and Naruto exchanged glances. Then, with Kusanagi in hand, Sasuke charged at Naruto after Naruto swung Samahata. The Chidori current began to pierce it. After cursing, he swung once more and covered Samahata with wind chakra. Leaning back, Sasuke kicked Naruto's legs, knocking him to the ground. Sasuke leapt to his feet as Naruto grunted and then swung his leg in a sweeping motion. After aiming his hand, Naruto struck Sasuke with a great breakthrough, sending him flying backward. "Not bad, Dobi," in jest, Naruto said. "Thanks, Teme." Then they charged at one another once more. Naruto removed his weights and thought, "I should probably take them off since Sasuke is almost as fast as I am when I take them off." Naruto quickly jumped around when Sasuke began shooting Chidori Senbon at him. Sasuke shouted, "Great Dragon Fire Technique," and hurled huge fireballs at Naruto in the shape of dragons. Naruto retorted, "Water Dragon Bullet no Jutsu," and blasted Sasuke with a dragon-shaped water blast. A wall of steam resulted from the collision of the 2 attacks. Sasuke shouted, "Chidori Current." From the haze as the mist was electrocuted, Naruto leapt back. Then wires sprung up all around him as he hit the ground. Dragon Fire Technique. When Naruto threw some shuriken and yelled, "Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu," all of the wires caught fire, but before they could reach him, they were all severed. Sasuke shouted, "Chidori Sharp Spear," and launched lightning spears. Naruto extended his hand. Wind Cutter. With a loud bang, the 2 attacks collided, sending the 2 enemies reeling backwards in a shockwave. After turning to face one another, they both triggered their dojutsus. Then they charged at one another once more. Naruto produced 2 kunai as Sasuke extended his katana. The distance between them was just 10 feet when Naruto threw the kunais, hitting Sasuke's shoulders as he leapt to the ceiling. After snarling, Sasuke leapt back and began to quickly throw dozens of shuriken using summoning lightning blade creation. Even though Naruto used shuriken shadow clones in response, he was still struck by a few shuriken. Sasuke stated plainly, "Quality of throwing versus quantity of shuriken, Naruto." Naruto smiled before lunging at Sasuke once more, tackling him and pushing the 2 of them outside. After snarling, Sasuke made a Chidori and charged at Naruto. After waiting for Sasuke to attack, Naruto ducked and delivered a punch to Sasuke's abdomen without even blinking. Sasuke slammed the Chidori down, shocking Naruto by grazing his side. After flinching, Naruto grabbed Sasuke's throat with his other hand. Sasuke grabbed Naruto's in return. "Why the hell are we fighting, Teme?" Naruto choked out. "Because I want to kill you, Dobi," Sasuke hissed. "Oh yeah? If you wanted to kill me, you could have pushed that Chidori right through my heart, but you didn't." Naruto yelled. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. The two then created a Rasengan and a Chidori, respectively, without the use of seals or shadow clones, and slammed them into one another. Both were stung by the shockwave, but they repeated the action and once more gazing directly into each other's eyes. Kami-Fun addressed Sharingan. They then released their hold on each other's throats and used Rasengan and Chidori once more. Both made some seals after being forced back by the shockwave. Great fireball technique, pressure damage. After the attacks collided, Sasuke created more seals as the white-hot fireball headed his way. Fire release. Intelligent hard work. He spit out, and a big ball of fire exploded when it came into contact with the other ball after creating more seals. Sasuke touched the ground when Naruto followed suit. Two enormous clouds of smoke materialized, eventually dissipating to reveal Gamabunta and a gigantic snake. Both of the big animals jumped back. Gamabunta bellowed, "Why did you summon me?" However, the snake's mouth was opening while Sasuke was creating some seals. Sasuke shouted, "Summoning! Great Kusanagi!" as the snake spat up a massive blade that was 10 meters in diameter. "No time. Need oil," cried Naruto quickly. Gamabunta's cheeks swelled after he muttered something. The snake was moving quickly in their direction. "Naruto!" Naruto shouted, "Now!" and threw an explosive tag. When the oil ignited, a massive fireball shot in Sasuke's direction as the snake screamed and was devoured by the fire. Sasuke flipped off of it and turned to face Naruto, revealing the Mangekyo Sharingan in the process. He yelled, "Amaterasu!" and blasted Gamabunta with an equally massive burst of black fire. Gamabunta disappeared as Naruto used the summoning seals once more, causing him to fall to the ground and avoid the attack. Panting, he looked around. He muttered, "I think I lost him." Large wings, resembling crows, retreated into Sasuke's back as wires whipped around him and he emerged from some trees. Whispering, Sasuke said, "Wrong," then he produced more seals. Dragon Fire Technique. Naruto smiled before he began to spin rapidly and surround himself with wind chakra, not great wind armor. Because Sasuke was clinging to the ropes, his eyes widened and he was pulled in. Then, Naruto exploded, creating a huge fireball. Sasuke sprang back swiftly, avoiding the massive fire. After spinning to a stop, he turned to face the real Naruto, who was perched in a tree, made a lot of seals, and raised his hand in the air. Naruto questioned, "What are you doing?" Sasuke grinned. "All of the heat from the flames caused evaporation, which caused condensation, which allows me to use my greatest technique," said Sasuke abruptly. Big clouds began to form and lightning began to flash. Sasuke shouted, "Kirin!" and waved his hand. Even though they all phased through Madara, Kakashi yelled, "Die!" and repeatedly used Raikiri on him. Madara said coldly, "This is pointless, you fool." Kakashi growled, lunged, but failed to hit Madara, and then struck again. A shallow hole appeared in Madara's torso as he staggered back after hearing thunder. They looked up to see clouds in the sky. Madara laughed. "Looks like your Hokage has lost," he replied. Kakashi snarled. He shouted, "What's that supposed to mean?" Madara laughed haltingly. "There are storm clouds, meaning Sasuke has used Kirin, which is an S-rank lightning jutsu almost as deadly as limelight," Madara stated. Kakashi's gaze grew strained. "Something that strong would have to be a suicidal technique." "Really? The Rasen Shuriken wasn't suicidal?" After that, Kakashi created a gang of shadow clones, all of whom ran toward Madara. Leaning back, Madara twisted around, grabbed the clones by the throats, and dispelled them all. Then he was paralyzed by two shocks. Anko leapt at him while brandishing a kunai as he screamed. Alongside Tsunade, Shizune was merely unconscious while Tsunade was tending to Guy. She gave Guy a sad look. That sword broke 2 ribs and narrowly missed his liver. He was bleeding profusely, but she knew she could heal him because the blade went through him as well rather than just sticking in him. She took a deep breath. Even though she was still a little hemophobic, she chose to ignore it and kept healing Guy. She glanced up into the sky, then back to the battle. She was concerned because she had listened to everything Madara and Kakashi had to say. "Naruto," she pondered, "please, stay safe." Sasuke watched indifferently as Naruto vanished into the vast crater of charred earth. The air was heavy with dust that was still blowing away. Sasuke's gaze expanded. Unthinkable, he thought. In the dust cloud, there was a shadow that swayed back and forth, seemingly hurt. It was Naruto, who had a ferocious smile and only a few scorch marks. He grinned and said, "Nice try. Oh my, that was so close. I would have died if I hadn't worn great wind armor. I was hurt even with great wind armor, and wind is better than lightning." Panting, Sasuke gazed at him. After exchanging glances, the two ate a soldier pill at the same time. Then, drawing 2 kunai apiece, they charged at one another. With lightning speed, the two adversaries attacked every opening and parried each other's blows. They then began to spin around and hold the kunai in strange ways while jumping up to attack and block in midair. They then secured all of the kunai together, preventing one another from moving their arms without risk of getting cut. As Sasuke and Naruto traded who had the upper hand, the kunai flinched and twitched. With a smile, Naruto infused his kunai with wind chakra and moved them a little. Naruto jumped back and attacked again after Sasuke screamed as his chest was sliced. But this time Sasuke moved behind Naruto and put his katana to Naruto's throat. He then turned to face Naruto. Naruto surveyed his surroundings. Where am I? He pondered. Then, in disbelief, he examined his body. He appeared to be composed of paper. Here, I'm Satan, and you're an unfortunate angel that happened to stray into hell, Sasuke replied. Huh? After shedding a few tears, Sasuke turned away from Naruto and snapped his fingers. Then, Naruto's body caught fire. Naruto yelled, "Holy shit!" and began to run around crazily. Sasuke was amused as he watched him run around, but then he struck him in the back of the head, breaking the illusion and revealing dozens of Naruto clones observing Sasuke while brandishing a kunai or samahada. Additionally, the kami fun was activated for each of them. Sasuke, I have a dojutsu too, so it wasn't too hard to break your genjutsu, Naruto replied with a grunt. Sasuke charged at every Naruto. In Konoha, fearful but excited, Hinata was making her way to the doctor. I believe I am, but I can't be. Could I? God, I believe I am, I couldn't be, could I? No, she pondered. She was shown to a room after entering the doctor's office. The man put on latex gloves and said, all right, Hinata-san, what seems to be the problem? Hinata twiddled her fingers uneasily. Well, Dr. San, while sipping from a foam cup, the doctor asked nonchalantly, would it happen to involve not having a period, and Naruto-sama? The doctor laughed as Hinata gasped and flushed. Don't worry, it's alright, you might just happen to be a little late for some reason. We'll just perform a quick test. Alongside the Jonin, Madara was nearly cut by Anko before he rolled away and disappeared holding kunai. Kakashi and Anko stood side by side. Kakashi declared, this is bad. Anko responded cynically, you think? Kakashi said nothing, but then turned and shoved Anko aside, creating some seals. Mori Reikari, lightning blade lance. He screamed, causing a lightning lance to pierce his target. A body with a hole in it that had burned edges fell, and Kakashi ran up to it. The body was face down, and he turned it around. Wires with explosive tags wrapped around him, and the hole fixed itself. Nice try, Madara said gloomily, but you'll never be able to defeat me. He then created a detonating seal alongside Naruto. Naruto leapt in front of Sasuke, who was lying on the ground with his limbs bound together and a bloody nose, his face sad. Sasuke, hurry up, how about you go back to Konoha? If you would like, we could make you an Anbu captain or a Jonin, he said, and Sasuke gave a pitiful smile. Naruto's expression turned irate as Sasuke said in a monotone, that is an interesting proposal, but Dobi, I'm afraid I'm going to kill you, then destroy Konoha. Why? He shouted angrily. Sasuke said icily, to test my power. Naruto gave him a gloomy look. Test your strength. I defeated you, that should give you an idea of how powerful you are. Sasuke burst out laughing, asking, what's funny? Naruto inquired. Dobi, do you believe I've been using my actual power? Sasuke said haughtily, I found something greater than you could ever hope to get. Naruto retreated as Sasuke began to glow, followed by dazzling blades that materialized out of thin air and sliced through the surrounding wires. Sasuke then grinned and inhaled deeply as a golden aura surrounded him. When it dissipated, all of his wounds were completely healed, and he appeared renewed. Finally, he created some seals. I will now demonstrate to you the strength of my recently found Kekai Genkai, release of light, divine judgment. Great breakthrough. Sasuke held his hand up in the air, and suddenly it began glowing. Then, the light on his palm began pulsing, growing, and expanding. Naruto stepped back uneasily, thinking, what is that? Then, Sasuke pointed his palm at Naruto, and a wave of light shot at him. Naruto quickly made some seals. He shouted, hurling a flurry of wind at the light, but it continued to strike him, pelting him and sending him hurtling through the air. Imbecile, why did you believe that wind could put out light? Naruto shrugged as Sasuke yelled. I'm not sure so, how did you pick up the use of light techniques, Sasuke? Sasuke sighed as Naruto asked. Well, lightning and fire are my affinities, both are plasma, the fourth form of matter. Additionally, light is a plasma. As Sasuke droned, Naruto silently withdrew a kunai with a seal on it and said, so, since I had the right elemental affinities, it was a relatively simple matter to learn how to channel light chakra. The hardest part was creating jutsu and coming up with the proper names for them. Sasuke concluded, and Naruto threw the kunai and created some seals. Shadow clones from shuriken. He yelled, causing the kunai to multiply. Sasuke jumped back, and a golden aura surrounded his fingers. Lance, holy! He shouted, my goodness! Sasuke grinned before creating some seals, and Naruto screamed as he dodged sharp light bolts that were hurled at him before vanishing. Chidori current. When they were flying through the air, Naruto appeared next to one of the Hiroshin kunai and quickly kicked it away before it could impale him. He called out, magnetically sending all of the Hiroshin kunai away from him. Damn! He knows the weakness of the Hiroshin, Naruto thought. Then he leapt at Sasuke once more, threw another kunai, but this time he added wind chakra to it, making it go faster, and stuck into the stone he threw it at. He then Hiroshined, hiding in the shadows. Sasuke looked around warily, then flicked his wrist to make a small light appear on his hand, and the light flew around, looking for Naruto. Then, with black circles under his eyes, Naruto leapt out, roared at Sasuke, and made some seals after he regained his composure. Excellent fireball technique, he shouted, hurling a burst of flame at Naruto, who was engulfed by the roaring fireball. Sasuke smiled, assuming Naruto had been completely burned. Sasuke snarled, tearing himself off the wall he landed on, and then he made some seals, while Naruto made a shadow clone. Naruto stood there, breathing heavily, with a few burn marks on him and the edges of his clothes slightly charred. Then he was kicked in the side, causing him to choke, and he was thrown into a wall after being kicked in the gut. Chidori. Rasengan. Each of them made a second shadow clone or more seals after the two attacks collided, creating a net of blue energy that crackled around them before they were flung back by the sheer power and landed hard on the ground. Bruised and battered, Naruto wiped some blood from his nose, and Sasuke wiped some blood from his lip. Then, jutsus in hand, they ran at one another once more. Chidori fire. Rasengan. Once more, the attacks collided, but this time Naruto was thrown farther back than Sasuke, and he skidded across the ground with pebbles stuck in his back. He slowly stood up, identifying the pebbles, then saw that Sasuke was running toward him once more. He struggled to his feet and used his shadow clones to reshape his chakra. Shining Chidori. Rasen Shuriken. With the Shining Chidori resembling a massive spear of light and the Rasen Shuriken, well, resembling a Rasen Shuriken, both of them launched their attacks that appeared to hit each other. But then they both turned slightly and pointed at their targets. Sasuke and Naruto both leapt into the air until their enormous and powerful attacks turned into clouds of smoke, revealing that they were actually disguised clones, each of which grabbed their enemy. Sasuke dispelled it by elbowing Naruto's clones, and Naruto smashed his skull into Sasuke's clone, turning it into a flock of crows. Sasuke then performed a series of more than 20 seals and held his palm up into the air, appearing to be on fire, a golden, lightning-laced fire that shone so brightly that it briefly blinded both Sasuke and Naruto. Chidori. Glorious shining. Naruto grimaced as the golden flames began to concentrate around Sasuke's hand and glow pure white. The attack's radiating chakra was able to break the building's walls around them, and Naruto forced his clones to begin creating Rasen Shurikens once more. Come on, Samahada, I need your water chakra, he thought frantically, and he smiled as he looked down at his white and blue Rasen Shuriken, which now had 8 points that were moving all over the Rasengan and constantly expanding and contracting rather than spinning in one direction. He then charged at Sasuke, launching his attack into the air. Tempest, Storm, Spiral, Urashi Rasen, he shouted. Insuna. You crazy woman, why are you chasing me? Temari gasped and sat down after Shikamaru screamed and fled from her. She took a few deep breaths before calling for Shikamaru to approach her. Shikamaru was about to start pulling away from her when Temari gave him a hug and said, I'm pregnant. Isn't that great? She shouted happily, and Shikamaru gave her a startled look before grinning and giving her a hug in return. He closed his eyes and pictured the two of them raising a child together, saying, yeah, that's wonderful. With a violent snap, one of Shikamaru's eyes began to twitch, and he said, I'm going to have a child with Temari. Gaara is going to be furious, returning to the battle. Weary and exhausted, Sasuke and Naruto charged at one another, their attacks colliding violently, followed by a humid wind crackling with electricity and heat, their clothes slowly but steadily tearing apart, scratches appearing on them that began to bleed, the blood being whipped around by the wind, and then the energy abruptly stopped and the two fell, right next to each other. For what felt like an eternity, the two lay there in silence. Naruto then turned to Sasuke and said, just like old times, huh, Sasuke? He inquired. Turning to face Naruto, Sasuke said, yeah, is fighting. Beating the shit out of each other, being rivals. Trying to see who was better, always trying to prove we were superior. After that, the two simply lay there, silent, facing one another, until Naruto grinned and began to laugh quietly before Sasuke looked at him in confusion before grinning and laughing too. They laughed for several minutes before Naruto wiped his eyes of tears. Good times. With friends like us, who needs enemies? Said Sasuke with a smile. Naruto's eyes widened as he whispered. Enemy is a fuck off. I must reach Madara, panicked, he said, and began to get to his feet when Sasuke grabbed his arm. He said, I'm coming with you. Naruto nodded after he paused. He heaved Sasuke up after saying, all right. He smiled, and Sasuke arched an eyebrow. What's so amusing? He inquired. Well, it appears that our battles are now exactly tied. What do you mean? Sasuke grunted. Well, we tied today, and the first time we battled, I tied you up with shadow clones. That was unfair. I wasn't prepared, and then, I won against Haku when you lost. Just due to the Kyuubi. After that, I triumphed at the Valley of the End and on the rooftop of the hospital. What? Your dumb Chidori wouldn't have caused as much damage as my Rasengan. I also had the option to kill you, but I refrained. And then, when we met again, I easily defeated your whole team. I also kicked your ass later. The two continued to argue until they both took a soldier's pill and left the other battle without saying anything. In Konoha, as she shuffled through some paperwork at the Hokage desk, Konan heard someone and recognized them instantly. Danzo-san. Why have you come here? Quietly, she said, and Danzo smiled. He said crazily, I've come to replace you. Konan didn't even blink. Danzo's smile widened even more as he said, sorry, but Naruto-sama specifically chose me to be his temporary replacement. He made some seals and said, I think you misunderstood me. Konan gasped as she was suddenly soaked in water, losing the use of her ninjutsu. I'm here to replace both you and Naruto-sama, he said permanently. Then, with a savage smile, Danzo took out a katana and stabbed it through Konan, just above the heart. Konan almost screamed as the cold blade pierced her, and she fell, bleeding pitifully on the ground. As she was dying, she half thought, half said, Nagato Yahiko, I'm coming. With a menacing grin, Danzo turned to face a Foundation, Root, member behind him. Then he began to laugh uncontrollably and howl at the ceiling. I want Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze listed as an SS class missing nin who is to be killed on sight if possible. No, bring him to me alive. Sai let out a sigh. He thought, please, Naruto, don't come to this village. At the battle, Madara's jutsu threw Kakashi back, and he screamed as he did so. Madara then teleported to him and kicked him. Rolling him into the dust, he mumbled, pathetic slime. Enko tackled him after he raised a kunai and attempted to cut him but failed. Madara glanced around. Shizune and Tsunade were prepared to fight. And Guy was awake despite appearing weak. Madara let out a sigh. He thought, I guess I'll have to reveal my other secret jutsu. He jumped back as Tsunade charged at him, and she choked as if she had been struck in the stomach. You see, I lied. I had a third jutsu, which is kind of like Shinra Tensei, except it is more concentrated, and can be used from any angle, and direction, and anywhere, not just from your hand. Madara replied. Kakashi cursed. He's an S ranked just based on those three jutsu. Additionally, he possesses the Sharingan and is a Uchiha, which means he is proficient in fire jutsu and could easily become a genjutsu master. He pondered. We're toast. Hey, Madara. Madara spun around and was struck by a strong blow, which was made even stronger by frog katas. Naruto. Tsunade pondered. Naruto was cracking his knuckles and smiling. After that, he ran toward Madara while making a Rasengan. He shouted, stupid brat, and became intangible. Naruto intentionally missed when he swung the Rasengan at him. Naruto slammed the Rasengan into Madara, sending him flying once more. As he turned in shock, Naruto sprang at him once more after Madara moaned, but this time, Madara was prepared after being painfully slammed into the ground. Naruto thought he heard a bone crack. However, he hurried to his feet and laboriously activated Sage Mode in Great Wind Armor. Then he began to beat Madara quickly, slamming his fists into him with rage. Before Madara could react, he began chopping him up with blades, focusing his chakra. Naruto leapt back as Madara staggered back. Madara spat up blood and phlegm in a ball. He yelled, well? Aren't you going to attack again, coward? Naruto grinned but remained silent. Well? Exclaimed Madara. Madara growled, and the air began to ripple around Naruto. Watch out, cried Enko. However, the assault has already taken place, shredding Naruto into smoke. Chidori. Madara had a rib crack and was pierced by a Chidori just as she turned around. He staggered back once more, only to be kicked into the air and slapped with a seal. He took a quick look around. There were numerous Naruto clones all around him. After he gasped, he was thrown into the air and struck repeatedly. Then, as he began to fall once more, all of the clones wearing Great Wind Armor seized him and began using Great Wind Armor to cut and tear him to pieces. Then everyone in the group began to fall. Madara cast a horrified glance down. Madara was about to fall when Sasuke held a Chidori Inferno. Madara quickly kicked off all of the clones, ripped off the seal, and teleported away, leaving Sasuke in his wake. He used a kunai to stab Sasuke. Then, Sasuke exploded, severely hurting him and burning the skin off his face. Madara then screamed in pain as the real Sasuke slammed a Chidori into her. Tsunade and Shizune watched in horror and fascination. "It's unbelievable that those three are fighting," she cried. Tsunade gave a nod. "Naruto has come a long way from being a tiny brat." Then Naruto multiplied them and threw some shuriken. Madara stopped them all, but Sasuke kicked him from behind. Madara growled before creating some seals. He yelled, "Running fire," and made some seals. Regretfully, Sasuke's Sharingan was in use. Sasuke shouted, "Running fire," at the same time. Two twin dragons were created by the two attacks, and they fought and encircled one another. Behind some debris, Kakashi and Guy were also observing. "Amazing, huh? How Sasuke and Naruto fight so well. It's almost like it's been planned by them. But the only person I could think of that could possibly know how Madara would move would be Shikamaru." Kakashi replied. Guy gave a nod. Madara was using his intangibility all the time now, but Naruto had managed to hit him once with his clones. Then Sasuke leapt before Madara. "Tsukomi." After blinking, Madara shook his head and burst out laughing. He boasted, "Like that would work on Uchiha." Sasuke grinned. "Well, that might not have worked on you, but this should," he replied. On Madara, wires then emerged. Madara was shocked to see that they were covered in seals that inhibited chakra. After creating all of the seals, Naruto left a Hiroshin seal on you. After hitting you, he then teleported to you and applied the seals before dispelling into a murder of crows. Madara turned his head in horror and heard a strange sound. Fire, lighting, water, and wind. Madara thought absently as Naruto and Sasuke ran towards her with a massive attack that was glowing red, yellow, blue, and white. It was a large sphere that was not much bigger than an Udama Rasengan, but it was radiating rings of sheer chakra, with lightning streaking across it, water splashing from it, fire on the Rasengan's surface, and wind blowing from the attack. After a while, Madara realized they were going to use it to obliterate him, so he struggled to break free of the wires and then turned to face Naruto and Sasuke, spitting out a white-hot fireball. Naruto attempted to jump over it, but it continued to follow him, and Sasuke turned around and let himself be struck. Sasuke. The huge Rasengan on his palm shrank to the size of one of Konohamaru's Rasengans, but it was glowing in every color of the rainbow with a hint of white. Naruto yelled in concern and then turned to face Madara. Growling, Madara struggled to break free, but Naruto lunged at him. Kami Rasen. When Madara choked, hell erupted. The Rasengan passed through him, then began to spin and expand, destroying every cell. The various chakras represented different ways in which his cells were mutilated. The fire chakra was excruciating, burning them to ashes. The lightning was painful, but it didn't destroy them. Instead, it made them numb and extremely sensitive, causing them to scald with pain when struck by another element. The wind was terrible, slicing and piercing his cells, leaving them in pieces. And finally, water, which, for some reason, either dehydrated his cells or filled a cell with too much water, causing it to explode. Madara let out a cry of pain and collapsed, revealing a hole a foot in diameter in his chest. Naruto gasped and dropped to one knee, muttering, "Damn." Before he drearily got to his feet, Sasuke approached him, gazed at Madara's body, and then spat on it. "Dobi, hurry up, let us return to Konoha." "Yes," Naruto said. Nodding, he gestured to the others and said, "Come on, let's just get everyone else. Come on." He yelled, and the others emerged from their hiding places to follow Naruto. As he left, Sasuke gave Naruto a light arm punch. "Hi, Dobi? Yes? I take it that you will appoint me as an Anbu captain?" As they left the scene of the Titanic battle, the S and A ranks team continued to talk and laugh, but they failed to notice Madara's arm twitch and his torso begin to reform. He narrowed his eyes and said, "I may not be able to fight him ever again myself, but I have a few subordinates I could call, people who owe me favors. That jutsu injured me to the point where I barely even have chakra pathways. In fact, most of my organs are now in bad condition as well. I'm really starting to feel my age." A smile spread across his lips. "You will pay." Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Namikaze. Naruto and his group were strolling happily after a few days of walking. They were nearly at Konohagakure except for Guy, who was nearly fully recovered, the majority of the Jonin had fully recovered. Sasuke snapped, "Hey, there it is," and gestured. Naruto smiled. He shouted, "Well, then let's go," and ran in Konohagakure's direction. Before long, he reached the gates, which were surprisingly open. "Hello?" he exclaimed. Nobody responded. Indeed, every store appeared to be closed, and every home appeared to be deserted. With a mutter, "Weird." Then he caught a glimpse of a dark figure running by. "Hey!" exclaimed Naruto. The figure made no response. "That's funny," Naruto reflected. Then a kunai flew over his head as he ducked to pick up a piece of paper on the ground. He unsheathed Samahata and jerked his head back up in alarm. "Show yourselves!" yelled Naruto like the grave. The village was silent. Then Naruto began jumping from one rooftop to another. He looked around and yelled, "Is anyone here?" Then he noticed a figure running on the ground while wearing a hooded cloak. He yelled, "Hey, you!" After a quick glance up, the person ran on. Naruto screamed, "Hey!" and ran toward the individual. He flipped onto the ground after jumping off the building and started running after the individual. "Who are you?" yelled Naruto. He then dabbed on his weights, which decreased their weight and enabled him to catch up to the person he was pursuing, and bit his finger, which caused some blood to spill out. Naruto screamed, "Stop!" before snatching the victim and turning them to face him. His mouth fell open when he saw how oily and filthy her hair was. It was Sakura. She appeared thinner, frightened, and haunted, and her eyes were a little bloodshot. Sakura whispered, "Naruto?" She exhaled, "You're supposed to be dead." Naruto gave a snort. Sarcastically, he said, "Well, sorry." Sakura let out a moan. "No, you baka. Danzo has taken over, and is now trying to kill you so Akatsuki can't get their hands on the Kyuubi." Softly replied she. Then she gave a small startled gasp. With a raspy voice, Sasuke asked, "What did I miss? This place is a dump." Sakura approached Sasuke in shock. She said in a whisper, "Sasuke?" Sasuke's eyes widened as he gazed down at her. Sakura-cha. Sakura, looking in rage, punched Sasuke into the ground as he was about to speak. Feeling the spot where Sakura had struck him on his chest, Sasuke moaned with pain. He asked, "What was that for?" Sakura appeared to want to murder him. "What was that for?" "Well, you first broke my heart 3 years ago, by leaving Konoha. Then, you joined Akatsuki. Then, you tried to destroy Konoha and Suna. And then, you made Naruto come after you, when he could have been protecting our village." She yelled. Sakura approached him menacingly as Sasuke swallowed and backed up a bit. She quickly turned her head around when a shuriken flew directly in front of her, scratching her nose slightly. She whispered, "Oh no." Naruto glanced. "What, it's only an Anbu." Sakura yelled, "Run!" and grabbed Sasuke and Naruto, pulling them along with her. Naruto turned around in disbelief. They were being pursued by the Anbu, who kept throwing shuriken and kunai at breakneck speed. Tsunade and Shizune were panting heavily when they heard someone drop next to them. Tsunade snarled, "What the hell is going on?" Sakura shouted, "No time. Just run," and dragged them all into an alley before jumping over a fence and the others following. Then, while holding Guy, Kakashi and Enko leapt in front of them. She yelled, "Move!" as shuriken whirled past them. "In here!" she exclaimed as she dashed into a small tunnel, which Naruto and Sasuke managed to pass through before assisting the others inside. Naruto gasped briefly before turning to face Sakura, his face illuminated by a dim firelight. "What on earth is happening?" His voice was hoarse. "I think I'll explain that." After Shikamaru finished speaking, Naruto jumped at Hinata and gave her a tight hug, saying, "Oh my god, I thought you might be dead." Iruka, Konohamaru, Hanabi, Moegi, Gaara, Matsuri, Tamari, Suigetsu, Karen, and Tenzo were all there. Naruto breathed freely in relief as he turned to see the other members of Konoha 11, he said, and Hinata gave a strange laugh. "You're harming us, Naruto." Naruto drew away from her as she spoke. "Us?" Naruto gaped as Hinata smiled and pointed to her stomach in response to his perplexed question. "No way," he muttered, then smiled and gave her a hug, his eye widening. "It's ours, isn't it?" he inquired. Hinata smiled and said, "Yes." Shikamaru threw some logs onto a fire and said, "Anyways." Enko hurried to Iruka, grinning, and said, "When you were gone, Danzo took over by killing Konan. He then began by posting a reward for both you and our heads." He said, "Naruto, you have a 50 million Ryo bounty on your head." Naruto laughed. "That's it?" He tried to downplay the situation by saying, "AIM gave me, like, a 500 million Ryo bounty." Shikamaru sighed. He twisted his face into a grim smile and said, "Anyway." He then ordered all of his Anbu in Foundation to attack Suna. destroying about a quarter of it, and stealing quite a bit. On the bright side, Gaara killed about a third of Foundation. He then scowled. We've been able to kill a few of them, but we also lost some people, he added. Unfortunately, Danzo then made all of his Anbu take certain drugs that made them all super strong, and have near Sanin chakra. After successfully poisoning 12 of them, Sai was sent to a prison of some kind. When we saw him yesterday, he had been so severely tortured that he was insane. After growling, Naruto's eyes widened and he asked, "Where is Kankuro?" Gaara sighed as he asked. Shikamaru nodded as he said gloomily, "We think he ran to Wave Country, but we aren't sure." Then, he sighed, "We had thought we won, but then, Danzo used some kind of drug on the normal Anbu, and some academy students, turning them into mindless warriors, making him have at least 200 warriors." He pointed to Ino, who had a broken leg, Kiba, who had a large cut on his face, and Shino, who had a chunk of flesh missing from his left leg. Many of us have been injured. Sasuke held a hand in the air to stop Shikamaru and said, wait, this all happened in less than a week?" Shikamaru looked grim as he asked. This had been planned for years, even decades, by that bastard Danzo in Suna. He planted bombs. Naruto snarled as well. He made the drugs for years, he said angrily. Shikamaru wasn't done, though, and he muttered, "That damn piece of shit." Shiho, who seemed to have a thing for me, was another person we lost. Naruto became a little excited as he said, "On the plus side, we now have a new ally, who helped us to kill over 13 of Danzo's soldiers. We also lost Kurenai and her baby to the prison," he said somberly. "Who?" he inquired. A rather short figure with eerie red eyes and a long cloak with red clouds on it emerged from the shadows, causing Sasuke to stiffen and Naruto's jaw to drop. "Itachi was the one. How are you doing?" Sasuke said, but his tone was more surprised than angry. At least in part. Itachi sighed. "Both my sickness and my demise were delusions." Naruto forced a feeble smile as Itachi remarked, "My Sharingan and Genjutsu were still better than yours, little brother." "Well, at least we are no longer adversaries, isn't that right?" he asked, and Itachi nodded before approaching Sasuke, who tensed up. Itachi grinned and prodded Sasuke's forehead. Sasuke shuddered a little, and then a ghostly smile came to his face. Naruto turned away to see Karen screaming something, with duct tape covering her mouth. She must have liked Sasuke a lot. Huh? He thought. Lee then gave Karen a hug, and as Sasuke watched, amused, she began to scream even louder. Naruto turned to face Sasuke, who said, "I almost feel sorry for her." "Really?" Shikamaru cleared his throat. Naruto laughed, and Sasuke said bluntly, "No." Naruto swallowed before beginning to emerge from the hole. And then, Danzo finished by destroying a lot of these buildings and forcing quite a few civilians to leave. He concluded glumly. "Where are you heading?" Hinata spoke anxiously, and Naruto paused. Quietly, he said, "To kill a certain someone, avoid it. He has too much protection." Concernedly, Shoji said. Naruto grinned ominously before scuttling out of the tunnel, and Sasuke muttered something to himself before turning to face the others. He cautioned them, "Stay here," but Hinata said, starting. "Remain here, with more force," Sasuke said, and he crawled out as well. After placing a Hirishin seal by the entrance to the cave they were staying in, Naruto and Sasuke prepared their swords and surveyed the desolate wasteland of the village they were in. "I'm still having trouble believing someone did this in less than a week," Sasuke murmured. Naruto grunted back, but then swung his sword around, right next to Sasuke, who jumped back in fear and sighed in relief when he saw a corpse resting on Naruto's blade and Anbu, of which Naruto had taken off the Mosca, and since he didn't recognize him, he pushed some chakra into Samahata, tearing its victim apart. Naruto took a deep breath through his mouth before turning. He whispered, "Come on, let's go." The two entered a light that Naruto thought was the plaza after walking through gloomy, dark streets that were littered with trash and dead animals. After gasping, Naruto threw up. They were in the plaza, but it was strewn with blood-covered corpses, some with stab wounds in their flesh and others with knives still in their hands. Sasuke muttered, "Oh my god." He approached a corpse and kicked it, causing it to lie motionless. Naruto looked around, breathing shallowly, and noticed that the bodies were covered in dried, sticky blood, and the air smelled of foul musk. After glancing at another corpse, Sasuke kicked it. The creature seized his ankle, and he watched in horror as it rose, displaying sunken, lifeless eyes and a seal on its forehead. Sasuke winced, then cut off its hand with his katana, and the monstrous creature continued to charge at him. Sasuke pushed his katana forward, impaling the undead creature through the heart, but it only punched him, slamming into a wall as he flew backward, feeling blood on his lip. "What a bitch that Sun is," he growled, running at the creature and pulling down on his blade after applying Chidori current to it, ripping it apart from its heart to its foot. He then pulled out the sword and sliced its legs and arms off. The thing still tried to crawl towards Sasuke. Frailing around with its bloody stumps, Sasuke snarled, then made a Chidori, slamming it through its skull, shattering it and piercing right through its head and brain. Sasuke panted, then turned to Naruto. "Naruto, we have to run," he shouted, and Naruto turned to face him. "What?" A gruesome corpse with 3 missing fingers leapt at him as he asked. "Chidori current." Naruto stared at the monstrosity in disbelief before launching a Rasengan and charging at the trembling body as Sasuke screamed and shot it back. "Rasengan!" he yelled, slamming it into his torso. Naruto expected for the thing to spin and fly back, but instead, the Rasengan ripped and tore the thing into a gory mess, leaving it as a body with a large hole in it. Naruto leapt back. "Why did it do that?" he shouted. "Since it was dead, it must have simply been weaker," Sasuke shouted, and Naruto swore before jumping back. "Everything is coming to life." Sasuke jumped back as well, seeing all the corpses standing up, slashed and stabbed. Naruto screamed in a raspy voice. "Chidori current." The majority of the bodies slowed down a little but continued to come as Sasuke roared and shot lightning from his fingertips, electrocuting them before stopping and gasping from the loss of chakra. "Excellent breakthrough." With his palms pointing at the corpses, Naruto shouted. "Excellent jutsu fireball." Sasuke shouted after a few seconds. They stopped to observe the corpses still stumbling along, albeit slightly burned, after the wind and fire combined to create a large blanket of fire that covered all of the bodies. Naruto sniffed the air, smelling the burnt flesh, and then he made more seals before turning to face Sasuke, who nodded, already aware of the plan. The immortal fire of Phoenix, pressure damage. Naruto applied pressure damage to some of Sasuke's fireballs, making them extremely large, fast, and white-hot. They melted off limbs as they flew at the bodies. Naruto made a seal after beginning to back away. "Exploding water colliding shockwave," he shouted, gesturing to the enemies who were approaching. The bodies were forced back by a blast of water that could fill 20 Olympic-sized pools. The blood-soaked water made the tile extremely wet. All the corpses were shocked when Sasuke screamed, "Chidori," and placed his hand on the damp ground, which instantly became electrocuted. With a sigh of relief, Sasuke and Naruto stepped back as they ceased their movement. Naruto remarked, "God, that was close." A voice grabbed Sasuke and Naruto and pushed them to the ground, saying, "Got you?" Naruto screamed in panic as Sasuke grimaced with laughter. The voice murmured, "Time to take the 2 of you to Danzo-sama." Then the grip on them relaxed and the laugh changed to gurgling. When Naruto looked up, he was shocked to see a gaunt Itachi with blood in his mouth, piercing a man who was now dead with a kunai. Itachi let out a sigh. He whispered, "What would you do without me?" After that, the 3 returned to their base by Hiroshine. "What?" shouted Shikamaru. Sasuke gave a nod. They were using corpses that were animated by chakra, kind of like what Pain did. Shikamaru gave a contemplative nod. "If so, then each one must be controlled by a human, since Danzo doesn't have the Rinnegan." He murmured. He let out a moan. He muttered, "I can't believe what Danzo has done." Tragically, Temari placed a hand on his shoulder. Naruto stood up straight. He said, "I have an idea." He turned to Sasuke. "Well, that's new." Naruto disregarded him. "Danzo controls Foundation, and they must be controlling all of the other Anbu and zombies, right?" His response was a nod. He exclaimed joyfully, "Well, in that case, all we'll have to do is kill Danzo." "Yeah, like we hadn't thought of that earlier," Gaara replied. Naruto broke out in a sweat. Sasuke raised his head. He said, "Actually, it might work. We just need a new leader for Foundation." Then, who was on our side? Naruto gave Sasuke's back a clap. "Why don't you kill him and be their leader? You said you wanted to be an Anbu captain, and Foundation is a branch of Anbu." With a sigh, Sasuke closed his eyes and turned to face the future. "I'll try." Except for Danzo's nervous pacing, the Hokage tower was eerily quiet. Abruptly he turned. He begged, "But why, Master?" He went on talking, but no one listened. There was another minute of silence before Danzo said, "But Master, I have to eliminate the boy. Admittedly, I have to find him to kill him." But he fell silent. He lowered his head. "Yes, Master." He then turned to face the destroyed village outside the window, which was, to put it mildly, a terrible place to live. He gave a small smile. Then he scowled. "But I still do not get what the purpose of this is, Master. Certainly we didn't have to do all of this." Danzo had a somber expression. Right, we have to control all of the great nations, no matter what. But why? Why do you want to, if all you will do is ruin them?" Then his voice became low and guttural again, and his eyes narrowed into slits, simple for revenge. Naruto was pointing to a map while seated next to the other shinobi. Look, Danzo has to be at the Hokage Tower, but it will no doubt be heavily guarded. Shikamaru responded. He indicated a location on the map. Shikamaru went on, we are here. The Hokage Tower is about half a mile away. Naruto will have the best chance of killing Danzo, not to mention he deserves to, so we should all escort him to the tower. He went on, I think he should have a personal guard consisting of Gaara, Sasuke, Itachi, and Kakashi. As all of them are good all-around fighters. Firstly, we should expect some drones, or those dead puppets, to attack us. So Choji, Tamari, Lee, we will need you to take care of them, because of your large, sweeping attack styles, which should repel them and keep them busy for a long time. The individuals he was referring to nodded. Then, we have a good chance of being attacked from a distance. We will have to try and dodge all of those attacks, and Tenten, you and Suigetsu will try and defeat the people attacking us, while we get to the tower. Then, when we arrive at the tower, that's where the best guards should be. Neji, Tsunade, Tenzo, and I will delay the guards the best we can. As Sakura put it, what about me? Shikamaru gave a nod. He turned to Hanabi, Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon and said, you're a medic nin, so we need you to stay with the injured here, and get them in fighting condition. Then, you will go and assist the others, healing their wounded. He firmly stated, you little ones will stay here. Konohamaru growled, and Hanabi sighed. Kiba smiled. Akamaru yelled, deafening the others, well, when Sakura's done healing us, we're gonna kick ass. After rolling up the map, Shikamaru turned to face the others. Well, Operation Retake Konoha is now in effect, he replied after giving a grim nod. Naruto got up and approached Hinata. He kissed her and whispered, I'll be back. Hinata gave a sorrowful smile before nodding as though she wanted to say something. Shikamaru had approached the door and was about to open it when Sasuke approached Sakura, knelt down to look into her eyes. She was seated, and then planted a kiss on her lips. Sakura blinked in shock. But Sasuke simply left the exit. Itachi, Naruto, Tsunade, Kakashi, Gaara, Choji, Tamari, Lee, Neji, Tenten, Tenzo, Suigetsu, and finally Shikamaru began to leave when Hinata inquired. She questioned, what if your plan fails? Shikamaru stopped talking and went back outside. When a swarm of corpses attacked, Naruto and his 4 guards were leading the way to the Hokage Tower. Shikamaru grimaced and nodded. He whispered, all according to plan. Choji then leapt forward and spread his hand wide, slamming into every corpse and pushing them back. Then, as he moved extremely quickly to beat up every zombie, Lee appeared to vanish. Then, as Tamari swung her fan, he flipped backwards, cutting all the bodies deep. Shikamaru shouted, go! Go! And everyone rushed forward, with the exception of Choji, Tamari, and Lee, who were still being attacked by the corpses. They heard Tamari scream while they were running. Eat this, bastards! They continued running through the empty and littered streets until kunai began to fly over their heads, and Shikamaru thought, that's my Tamari-chan. Evasive maneuvers, Shikamaru shouted. Huh? Inquired Naruto. Then he dodged a kunai and yelled as a shuriken just missed his nose. He shouted, hey, Tenten, Suigetsu. While Suigetsu leapt up to one of the people throwing shuriken and drew Zabuza's sword, Tenten shouted, already on it, Naruto, and used shuriken to deflect projectiles. He joyfully exclaimed, time to die, fucker, before slicing off one's head and leaping to another. Naruto smiled. He said to Shikamaru, this is all going great, huh? Shikamaru splattered blood from a flying head on his face and exclaimed, if this was going great, we'd already be at Danzo, and you would have killed him. Naruto broke out in a sweat. He said uneasily, yeah, by that time, they were almost at the tower. So close, Naruto reflected. Then something struck the ground in front of them, obscuring everyone's view with a thick cloud of dust. The dust gradually dissipated to reveal a big, hideous, I believe that's a word, ninja who was clearly under the influence of a drug that made his muscles unnaturally large. A wave of energy erupted from the ninja's raised palm, knocking them all back with a moan. Naruto rose slowly and charged at the ninja before being stopped by a sand wall. Naruto, remember the mission, shouted Gaara. Naruto nodded and sighed after cracking her knuckles. Tsunade lunged towards the monster and delivered a punch, but it deflected the blow and pushed her away after Tenzo snarled and made some seals. A huge tree sprang up out of the ground, hitting the man in the chin and pushing him away. Then, suddenly, more monsters appeared until there were 12 in all. Naruto paused and turned to look behind him as he and his group ran toward the tower. Naruto! Exclaimed Sasuke. Naruto abruptly returned to reality. Silently, right, sorry, He said the five were racing up the stairs as they kept running in the direction of the tower. They were confronted by a vast, dark emptiness. There were tiny dots of rainbow-colored light swirling languidly. Naruto stooped to peer inside. After inserting his finger, he turned to face the other side of the hole. He did not have a finger. He got back up. Naruto remarked, "Okay, that is just weird." Sasuke gave an eye roll. "Let's get Danzo. Just jump over that thing," Sasuke exclaimed as he attempted to leap over the black hole. When he leapt, an unseen shockwave struck him, pushing him back with a curse. He got to his feet. Naruto let out a moan. "Now how are we going to get to Danzo?" asked the man. Itachi gave a shrug. His suggestion was to go through that portal thing, perhaps? Naruto gave him a look. He questioned, "Who knows what could be in there?" Itachi gave a shrug. "Why not just use a shadow clone to check the place out?" Naruto smiled after blinking. "Oh yeah," he exclaimed. Concocting a clone and pushing it inside, it became a cloud of smoke. As soon as it entered the hole, Naruto peered cautiously inside. He said dryly, "Well, that didn't work." Gaara also went to her knees. "Well, I suppose we will just have to enter and hope we do not die," he replied. "You couldn't have worded that better, could you, Gaara?" Kakashi replied with a shrug. Gaara scudded inside and disappeared after giving the others a startled look. Naruto crept inside with a sigh. Sasuke went ahead, followed by Itachi and Kakashi. "Whoa!" exclaimed Naruto. His group was in a spacious, three-doored, black room. After exchanging glances, Kakashi approached and opened a door. He peered inside. "It's all pitch black. I can't see a thing," he exclaimed. Itachi opened a second door. "This one is black also." The last door was opened by Gaara. "This door is the same." They all exchanged glances. Gaara remarked, "I believe Danzo is attempting to divide us." After giving them a nod, Sasuke turned to face them before making his way to the left door. "I'm going to try this door just to see what happens," he replied after Kakashi gave a nod. Sasuke entered the door, then melted away and closed behind him. The group exchanged terrified glances. "Well, let's just all go through one door to see what happens," Kakashi responded after giving a silent nod. Naruto moved toward the center door and waited for the others to follow before entering. Naruto gaped. He found himself back in the same room, but this time there were three doors. What just happened? He stammered, glancing back to see his team and no door. He appeared as perplexed as the others. He turned to the door on the right after glancing at the other three. Kakashi, try going through the door in the middle again. Gaara, try the door on the left. Itachi, we'll try the door on the right. When the others nodded, Kakashi and Gaara entered their doors and vanished. Itachi followed Naruto to the door, which he opened and entered. They returned to the same room, but this time there were three doors and neither Kakashi nor Gaara. Naruto let out a moan. "Now what?" Itachi gave him a look. "Simple. Danzo is slowly removing all of your allies. You have to be alone to face him," he murmured after Naruto swallowed. Itachi moved to the left door. He looked over at Naruto. He said, "Well, take your pick," before disappearing through the doorway. After glancing at the central door, Naruto approached and unlocked it. The two were caring for Kiba and Shino, and Sakura had already healed Ino. Kiba smiled. Sakura sighed. "I feel all better now. Can we fight yet?" she said impatiently. "No, Kiba." Shino let out a sigh. "The others may be in trouble, though," he added. Ino gave a nod. "We know, but Shikamaru said to say here." Kiba gave a snort. He stood up and said, "Why should I care what Shikamaru says? I'm going." Then Sakura knocked him out, and he moaned and fell. Sakura's fingers touched her lips, where Sasuke had planted a kiss, after she glanced up at the ceiling of the cave where they were staying. While Udon was conversing with Konohamaru and Moegi, Hinata was conversing with Hanabi. And Udon was occasionally glancing at Hanabi. Konohamaru quailed, "I mean, come on. My Fire Rasengan could take on all of those losers, but I don't get to fight." Then Moegi punched him to the floor. She screamed, "I am so tired of listening to you whine." Trying to protect Temari and Lee, who had already used up all of their chakra fighting the undead warriors, Choji was panting. One cut open his enlarged hand, and he winced. This can't go on much longer. He knocked down a row of them, thinking. All of their attackers were being routed by Suigetsu and Tenten, but more appeared to be on the horizon. Tenten then became aware that Suigetsu was beheading every warrior for the first time. She screamed, "Suigetsu! Just knock them out." After rolling his eyes, Suigetsu struck a man in the face with the flat of his blade. He muttered, "Fine." Naruto gaped. A limp body, face down, lay on the ground. A tall man stood smiling in front of him. Danzo, however, he had a longer face, darker hair, stronger arms, and one blood-red eye with black in it. Danzo approached him slowly, and Naruto staggered back. Danzo grinned. Danzo said, "So we meet again, Naruto-san." However, his voice sounded like two people speaking simultaneously. Naruto's gaze expanded. The second voice was recognizable, too much like home. "That can't be," he reasoned. "Madara." Madara stepped toward Naruto, who stared at him in horror. "You thought I was dead, didn't you?" Madara muttered. He then gave Naruto a painful backhand slap that sent him crashing into a wall. He kicked Naruto in the stomach and said, "Well, obviously, you're as stupid as your mother immortals. Can't?" He kicked him in the back. For that he screamed, "Die!" and kicked Naruto in the face, shattering his nose. After vomiting a little and spitting up blood, Naruto stumbled to his knees. He snarled and dropped to one knee, asking, "You knew my mother?" Madara grinned malevolently. "You heard she died in childbirth, correct?" He was purring. Naruto gave a headshake. He muttered, "I never knew how she died." Madara yelled, "I killed her," and kicked Naruto to the ground. Before he could get to his feet, he yelled, "Kneel before me." With a bitter tone, Naruto said, "Kneel my ass." Madara then gave him a kick to the chin before pressing his foot down on Naruto's head. Madara gave a twisted smile. "Good," he muttered to himself. Then a sword was raised above his head. "Time to die." Then Madara flew. When Naruto exploded as the dust settled, Madara noticed 10 Narutos staring at him with unfathomable rage. After laughing, Madara charged at every Naruto. Kami-fun. With a smile, Madara triggered his Sharingan. He sliced the Narutos to smoke with ease as they all charged at him. He then created some seals, and as Naruto screamed and was flung into a window, the air appeared to shimmer. Madara grinned. "This office is soundproof, unbreakable, and all of the windows are blacked out. No one will know you have died," he said with a grin. Madara approached Naruto slowly as he was slowly getting up. He inhaled. "Do you know what's interesting?" Then he began to remove the bandages from his eye. Naruto gaped. Madara's Mangekyo Sharingan was completely different from the other Sharingan that was inside. Madara grinned. He muttered, "Danzo managed to somehow get a Sharingan also." Naruto then let out an agonized scream. Madara chuckled. "Now, I'm using 2 different illusions on you, basically tearing your mind apart. Soon, you will be a pitiful, hollow shell of your former self, and simply rot away until..." After that, Naruto's fist erupted and struck Danzo in the neck. Madara staggered back, choking, and Naruto stood up exhausted. Then he bounded at Madara, but he was caught in the air and flung like a piece of garbage. This time, Naruto jumped to his feet. The voice of Naruto said, "Come on, bastard." Madara grinned and vanished. Madara appeared a few seconds after Naruto leapt into the air. Madara just grabbed the shuriken that Naruto threw in midair. His whisper was, "Imbecile." After that, the shuriken changed into tagged kunai. After glancing at them, Madara was struck by Naruto smirking. Madara flew back into a wall. He said, "Hirishin, eh?" Naruto smiled. "Yeah." Then, as they ran at one another, Naruto removed Samahata, who had been cloth wrapped up until that point. After roaring, the two slashed out at each other's sword, causing sparks to fly. Given how evenly matched the two were, Naruto grinned. Madara then grinned and pushed while placing his other hand on the handle. The moment Naruto was flung back against a wall, his eyes grew wide. Madara approached him sloppily and made some seals while Naruto coughed up some blood. "Great fireball Tenkaichi!" Naruto roared, "Great breakthrough!" as Madara produced the fireball. A massive wall of fire engulfed Madara as he screamed. After that, Naruto created some clones, but they disappeared. Then, knowing that Madara would arrive, he readied himself for him. Nothing. After blinking, Naruto noticed Danzo's body lying on the ground. He approached it cautiously. Madara then stabbed him in the left lung in the back. "That is Nagao stick," Naruto pondered. After grinning, Madara turned the sword around. Feeling the cold steel in his body, Naruto gasped and coughed up blood once more. Through a whisper, "Teme." Madara's smile widened. "It's over, Naruto." As Madara twisted the blade once more, Naruto let out a scream. Madara laughed. Naruto snarled, "Do you want to hear a story, Naruto? You see, I am basically the cause of all of your pain. I controlled Fugaku, making Sasuke's life miserable. I controlled the 9-tailed fox, forcing your father to seal it. I killed your mother. I led Akatsuki." He continued. He shifted the blade to the top. "And now, I'm going to end your life." Then Sasuke, Itachi, and Gaara jumped in as the windows broke. Madara quickly turned, only to be struck by a gust of sand with a seal. Itachi exclaimed, "Run, Naruto-san." Before exploding into a swarm of crows, Naruto gave a headshake. "No, I can't. The others can take care of themselves, but Madara." With composure, Itachi concluded, "Taught me all of his tricks. Go." After hesitating, Naruto nodded and turned away. Itachi gave Madara a chilly look. After nodding, he whispered, "Even gods don't last forever, Madara." and the new generation shall always overtake the last. Then they hurried toward one another as the late Kyuubi's chakra healed his normally fatal wound at least. I believe that a cut to the lungs would normally be fatal. Naruto lay just outside the tower, panting. Then a scream reached his ears with a shout of, "Tsunade! Ba-chan!" He dashed in the direction of the four battling the upgraded ninja. He made seals furiously. He shouted, "Pressure damage!" and fired at the ninjas. Only 5 of the 12 were still standing, but they only appeared to be slightly repelled by the pressure damages. After growling, Naruto created more seals. He cried out, "Windcutter!" One of them had seized Tsunade in its grasp, but Windcutter cut off its arm, causing it to scream in pain. Naruto smiled, then made a Rasengan and lunged at another, sending it flying. After slamming it into his stomach, Naruto smiled, "All right." After that, he fainted. Naruto groaned and woke up to find Tsunade tending to him. He was topless and covered in bandages. Wah. She described it as chakra exhaustion. Turning, Naruto faced the tower. He muttered, "I've got to go back." "No, Naruto," bellowed Tsunade. Naruto winced. "You can't fight in this condition." After a brief moment, Naruto appeared next to Tsunade, fully clothed darkly. He said, "Watch me." Tsunade nodded and sighed. Hiroshine went to Naruto's office after that. He stared around in disbelief when Naruto appeared. Madara had minor wounds, Sasuke and Gaara were both unconscious and injured, and Itachi was hardly hurt. Naruto snarled, "Itachi, take Sasuke and Gaara to Tsunade. This is personal." Itachi shunned and nodded. Naruto turned angrily to Madara. Madara grinned. "Why is this personal? There are so many reasons. Kyuubi, your parents, your friends, Konoha itself." Naruto growled, and his kami-fun glowed blood red rather than the colors of the 5 elements, for everything. Naruto gazed angrily at Madara, his eyes glowing a bloody red. After laughing, Madara gestured to Naruto. "It's recently been getting harder for me to do this, but..." The air then glowed and burst, forming a huge dust cloud. "I think I've still got it." Naruto appeared unharmed as the dust settled. Madara smiled after raising an eyebrow. "Ah, great wind armor, no?" Naruto smiled and disappeared. Madara arched an eyebrow. Was there no jutsu in that Shunshin? Then, in a flash, the shinobi Madara had already defeated disappeared. "No, that was just speed." Madara blinked. "Huh?" Naruto then reappeared and grabbed Samahata. Madara smiled and drew his sword, but Naruto vanished, and Madara gasped as his body was covered in cuts. Then Naruto was in front of him once more. "Is that Hiroshine?" Madara pondered. "No, it isn't possible. He doesn't appear to be losing chakra, and there are no seals." Then he concentrated with his Sharingan. He blinked. He leapt between 2 distinct locations where the air appeared to shimmer and be ripped apart for a few minutes before closing. The procedure was then repeatedly carried out. He grinned and said, "Unfortunately, I couldn't possibly keep up with him because what I am witnessing is the same progress happening at a tiny fraction of its speed. I may be able to capture him in between dimensions, though, because I know he must be employing some form of space-time jutsu." Then he moved between dimensions by teleportation. When Madara saw Naruto standing in front of him, he smiled with a roar. He charged at him and swung his sword. Naruto just nodded and withdrew Samahata. His voice sounded like his own mixed with Kyuubi's as he said, "I see." Then he smiled ferociously. Madara ran at him furiously and screamed. Naruto grinned before Samahata's blue chakra began to glow. His roar, "Shippuken," caused Samahata, or more accurately, Shippuken, Hurricane Sword, to transform into a flash of blue and black chakra before reshaping into a slim black steel katana with a dark blue edge and an orange flame pattern on it. It had a blue and black handle and measured about 4 feet in length. Madara arched an eyebrow. "What the hell?" Naruto grinned. "You see, this immense chakra, and the fact that I am beating you, allowed me to access Shippuken, which is my form of Samahata. Blades like these, since they are made from chakra, change for their wielders." Madara grinned. He said, "Right?" Then Naruto began to glow, and in a moment, he appeared to be completely different. His cloak was now transformed into a long-sleeved cloak with an open front that revealed a gray shirt and black pants, made from red and black rags and shreds. His hair was longer and had some orange spikes, and it was long enough to cover his eyes. His eyes were still a blood-red kami-fun. Think of Ichigo's Bankai, only more ragged. Madara arched an eyebrow. Then, with a smile, Naruto ran to meet him. He exclaimed, "Great breakthrough." Madara leapt back, but the wind still snagged him. With a wince, he continued to fly backwards. "Oh, this dimension is endless, isn't it?" Then he returned to Earth via teleportation. Madara showed up first, then Naruto. After glancing at him, Naruto swung his sword. The Great Wave Claw said, "Ko Namitsume." "I hope that's proper grammar." Madara blinked. and a big, thin blade of water emerged from Naruto's blade. Madara blocked it with his outstretched hand. The water struck him, then burst into a shockwave that pushed Madara back in agony and went mostly forward. The force was so great that his wrist broke. He swore and collapsed to the ground. Panting, his clothes were shredded and his face was cut. Then Naruto rushed Madara. Naruto charged at him once more, and shadow clones surrounded him. "That wasn't any jutsu I've ever seen before," he said. Madara's sword shattered in his hand as he pulled it out. Madara looked at it, looking for something. Naruto was holding the rest of his blade when Madara turned in surprise. Then Naruto let it fall. The air around Naruto began to shimmer once more as Madara growled and then squinted his eye. Naruto grinned. 3 clones crashed into Madara, stabbing him with kunai and choking him. The original Naruto was gone when he looked up after cursing. He violently swatted the clones away. Then Naruto swung his sword and slashed deep into Madara's chest as he flew at him from behind. Naruto swung again, striking Madara's shoulder as she staggered back, coughing up blood. The two were sprayed with blood as the sword cleaved through him. Madara swung at him fiercely, but Naruto had already vanished and then reappeared behind Madara, severing his back. Naruto leapt backwards and made a seal after Madara let out a cry of pain. Pressure damage. No. Then Madara kicked Naruto into a wall from behind. He grinned, but Naruto came out unharmed. Naruto had red, but icy, eyes. They resembled incomprehensible, deep pools of blood. Madara gave an involuntary shudder after holding Shippuden squarely in front of him. Naruto rotated it 180 degrees counterclockwise. Then it glowed once more. Konomitsume. Then the ground exploded, sending water flying in all directions, splattering Madara and cutting through the walls. His blood flew into the water and looked like red ribbons as he swore and skidded back. He fell in the water, coughing up blood, and slammed into a wall, wincing as a rib broke. What the devil is he doing? Hits like that wouldn't even register on me normally, but now he's practically god level. Not only has his strength grown slightly, but it has grown dramatically. Then, as Naruto materialized directly in front of him brandishing a Rasengan, his eyes widened. Rasengan. As Naruto slammed the Rasengan into a wall, destroying it entirely, Madara quickly teleported. Madara observed it. That attack has also become more powerful. Naruto then kicked him from behind, grabbed his and threw him against a wall, then dug a fist deep into his stomach, causing Madara to cough and then throw up. He choked as he did so. Naruto was fortunate to have teleported by that point after reappearing with his sword. Naruto launched an incredibly quick shot at Madara. Madara growled and got ready to launch his attack on Naruto, but by that time, Naruto had already teleported and was throwing shadow clones at him when they exploded. Madara's skin tore and burned off. The streets were painted with blood. He gasped. He thought, immortality can be a bitch at times. After that, a blade pierced his liver, and he turned slowly to see Naruto standing behind him with a chilly look on his face. The two teleported at the same time. After kicking Madara off his sword and into a pole, Naruto snatched his own and jumped to the ground, slamming his spine against the road. Madara's mouth and nose were gushing blood as he let out a painful scream. Subsequently, Naruto thrust his hand through Madara and tore open his torso, exposing bone, muscle, and fat. In addition, there was a repulsive quantity of blood veins as well organs as well. In a fit of rage, Naruto reached in and seized Madara's left lung, crushing it. Naruto crushed it once more as Madara screamed as it regrew. Then Naruto dug around inside and produced a kunai. After growling, Madara teleported off. Uncomfortably, blood trickled from his wound. With a sigh, he raised his gaze. He remarked, "I suppose there's no choice." Then he grabbed his face and extracted his left eye. It was dull, covered in fat, bloody, and still had the Sharingan in his hand. He crushed it. He began to glow with green chakra as it transformed into dust and flew around him, healing all of his wounds except his eye. He smiled, then vanished. Still on the ground, still covered in gore, Naruto was panting. Then someone kicked him in the ribs, causing him to choke. He turned to see Madara giving him a gloomy look. Naruto gestured toward him. "I don't remember doing that to your eye." Madara smiled. If a Uchiha removes one of his eyes and destroys it, he gains far greater power. Naruto gave a shrug. Madara snorted, not to mention bad depth perception, and vanished. A hand stabbed Naruto in the chest as he got to his feet, pushing him back and causing him to collide with a wall. After cursing, he lunged toward Madara and swung his sword. Madara merely grinned before drawing his own sword, blocking Naruto's and leaving a tiny scuff on it. Madara pushed Naruto into a pole, cracking his ribs and causing him to vomit blood as his eyes widened, and he thrust his knee into his side after wiping the blood off his lip. Naruto swung his sword and charged at Madara once more. Madara smiled as he caught it in his bare hand. Naruto's mouth fell open. After that, Madara kicked Naruto in the side, causing him to fly through numerous walls. Madara approached him slowly with a chilly smile before Naruto teleported off. Madara smiled before teleporting as well. After they both crashed their swords into one another, with Naruto's receiving a minor cut. They repeatedly teleported while still striking each other. Naruto then fell backward onto a stack of bricks after Madara slashed his front. The cracking sound of his spine made him twitch and groan in pain with a smile on his face. Madara approached him and raised his sword. His words were crazed. Time to die. As though he wanted to give up, Naruto held up his cloaked arm, which was blood-stained and ragged. Madara lowered the blade. What? The blade was immobile because the rags used to make Naruto's cloak had wrapped around it and they were paralyzing his arm by creeping up it. What is this? Snarled Madara, attempting to rip it off. Naruto smiled and remarked, "Chakra cloth, they're indestructible. You thought I wouldn't have some trick up my sleeve?" Madara swore and made an unsuccessful attempt to move his arm. Naruto then reached for his sword. Then he swung his sword and said, "Madara, don't you know the good guy always beats the bad guy? Arashi?" Madara's gaze grew strained. "And what makes you so sure you are the good guy?" After swallowing, Naruto's sword's chakra burst forth. Madara was struck by a wall of slashing wind that sliced him all over, splattered his blood everywhere, and pushed him against a wall. The amazing wind and the immobile stone wall caused Madara to break every bone in his body. The wind died, and he collapsed to the ground, coughing up blood from internal hemorrhage. Then he noticed Naruto with his sword above him. Madara chuckled. "Nice try, Uzumaki, but as long as I have my Sharingan, I'm immortal." Naruto grinned. He lifted his sword above his head and said, "Unfortunately for you, while I normally would be more merciful, the whole village, and maybe the whole world, needs you gone for good. Goodbye, Madara Uchiha." Then he drove the sword into Madara's brain, piercing through the last of his Sharingan. Madara suffocated. He muttered, getting older and more wrinkly, "Damn you." Blood spurted from his mouth and began to flow out of a growing pool as he attempted to raise his head, but it fell. Naruto gasped as his eyes gradually returned to normal after swallowing a tiny amount of blood. Samahada's clothing returned to normal, breaking Madara's skull because it was still lodged in his eye socket. Then he collapsed, unconscious. "Naruto! Naruto! Wake up!" With a moan, Naruto opened his eyes to see Hinata leaning over him with concern. Naruto gave a weak smile. "Did I win?" Kiba smiled and said, "Big time." Naruto smiled. "Great, however, there is some urgent business to take care of." Sasuke replied. He gave Naruto a piece of paper. "It says that the 5 cages are supposed to meet in the Land of Iron." Naruto's eyebrow went up. "So?" Sasuke let out a sigh. "Tomorrow, Naruto. Tomorrow." They were going to discuss Akatsuki, but now, since that threat has been eliminated, we have no idea what will happen. After nodding, Naruto glanced blearily at Samahada, which was still in his blood-stained hand. How did that occur? He pondered. He then faced Sasuke. "We have to repair Konoha though," Sasuke angrily exclaimed. "There's no time. Tenzo can help once he is fully rested, but you have to go soon." Naruto gasped. He grumbled, "But I just got back." Sasuke let out a sigh. "Still, you must represent Konoha in the meeting," he declared with a groan. Naruto got to his feet, cracking his knuckles and neck. "Well then, where is the Land of Iron?" Silently, Itachi said, "I know the place, I shall escort you there." According to Tsunade, "Me too." Naruto smiled. "Well, then let's go." Tsunade let out a sigh. She said, "First, Naruto, we need to get ready." Naruto let out a sigh. "The meeting is just a day away, so let's move quickly," Tsunade said, rolling her eyes. "I don't see you getting ready." After that, Naruto vanished and then reappeared a few seconds later carrying a number of supplies. Itachi muttered, "Unlike you, Naruto-san, we don't know Hirushин." Naruto groaned. "I'm beginning to despise my role as Hokage." Naruto strode forward, exhausted, then grinned. He exclaimed, "I see the Land of Iron." With a sigh, Itachi and Tsunade approached him. He said, "Come on," and threw a Hirushин kunai before snatching the two. Impatiently, the Tsuchikage complained, "When is that new youngster Hokage going to show up?" Gaara gave a single laugh. "If I know Naruto, he will appear right when." Then a Rasengan broke through the conference room wall. Sweating profusely, Gaara concluded, "We least expect it." The Mizukage let out a moan. She thought, another maverick, but then she noticed Itachi, who was alert. Fortunately, he wasn't wearing an Akatsuki cloak, so nobody recognized him. "Tsunade," the Raikage grunted. "Did you not die?" Shrugging, Tsunade said, "I got better." "Wow," Gaara sighed, thinking, "Only Naruto can do things like this." The Raikage then leapt to his feet and accused Itachi. "Wait, you are a member of Akatsuki." Silently, he declared, Akatsuki is dead. Naruto Namikaze-san killed Madara Uchiha. Raikage gave a furious twitch. Your brother killed mine, Itachi calmly answered. Killer B is still alive, just in hiding. Raikage was furious, and how do you know of this? Obviously, if the Hokage was escorted by Itachi, he trusts him completely, said the Mizukage. Then she approached Itachi. Nice to meet you. Well, if we aren't going to talk about the late Akatsuki, what are we going to talk about? Interrupted Naruto. We don't know the Mizukage's name. As far as I can tell, the Mizukage sweat dropped. The Tsuchikage became increasingly grave. You, Naruto Namikaze. Naruto blinked. Huh? You, Naruto, you are the newest Hokage, and we have to wonder how did you become so strong? Naruto began to perspire. Wah. Subsequently, a man who bore a striking resemblance to Mayuri from Bleach approached Naruto and touched his forehead, causing him to instantly stiffen. A few seconds later, the man moved away. He said, Kekai Genkai. Not quite as strong as the Rinnegan, but stronger than the Mangekyo Sharingan, and most elemental Kekai Genkai. The Raikage gave a snort. Please, Kekai Genkai doesn't mean anything. Look at me, I'm stronger than at least 3 of you, and I don't have a Kekai Genkai. The examiner gave a shrug. Well, Namikaze-sama, you won't mind if we perform some tests, will you? Then, suddenly, 12 distinct Zetsus appeared from the ground. Raikage staggered backwards. What? Zetsu smiled menacingly. Raikage's eyes darted to Naruto and he said, Thank you, Namikaze-san. Without your help, I doubt we would ever have been able to find this place. What? You're in league with Akatsuki? No, you idiot, I put spores on him. Raikage snarled. Like I'll believe that. Zetsu looked over at him. He turned to the other cages and asked, Why would I lie about that? As, regrettably, both Pain and Madara are now deceased, I am afraid I am the leader of the Akatsuki. Tsuchikage got to his feet and, wincing, grabbed his back. Akatsuki, he squeaked out. Zetsu grinned icily. Yes, but unfortunately, this time, Akatsuki shall not focus on quality as much as on quantity. Itachi's eyebrows went up. You see, I have recruited nearly all of Sound Village, most of Omegakure, and many other smaller, lesser-known nations to assist me. Raikage snarled, looking at Naruto. He said, Yeah? Big deal, I'm going to single-handedly kill all of you. Then I'm going to kick your ass. Mizukage let out a sigh. So brash, aren't you? Zetsu then gave a hollow laugh. He then divided into his black and white halves and leapt onto the Tsuchikage and Raikage. They screamed, then began to twist and convulse in pain, until all of a sudden their eyes turned a frightening yellow and their skin either turned white or darkened to black. Tsunade, Itachi, Gaara, and Mizukage all retreated into a fighting stance. Naruto let out a moan. I'm beginning to regret my role as Hokage. A few days before Christmas, a year ago. Naruto cast a somewhat dejected glance around. Jiraiya gave him a perplexed look. Hey, what's wrong, Gaki? Naruto let out a sigh as she sipped some sake. Jiraiya shrugged and said, Well, I'm just wondering what's going on in Konoha. Oh, don't worry, it's not like you left behind some girlfriend or something. Brushing some of her growing hair off her face and developing breasts, Hinata gazed up at the bright sky that was unbelievably hot for summer. She let out a sigh as she recalled previous Christmases. I suppose that wasn't very good, but at least Naruto was present. An earlier Naruto Christmas was unoriginal. From behind a tree, a shy 6-year-old Hinata peered at Naruto's apartment before gasping when the door opened. Naruto yawned and glanced around before blinking and looking down. Hinata also blinked. In addition to hers, there were 2 packages there. Naruto carefully picked one up and gave it a little shake. He opened it after swallowing. A broad smile spread across his face, and Hinata's smile followed suit. I've heard that he loves orange and has always aspired to be like the 4th Hokage, so. Naruto gazed in wonder at the orange-flamed white cloak. He then turned to face the back, and his smile widened even more. Future Godem was written on it. Naruto examined the parcel. He whispered, Huh? No card or address? He shrugged after that and opened it, looking down at the other present. As Naruto's smile widened even more, Hinata was appalled. No way, exclaimed Naruto. It was a bright orange jumpsuit with white furry collars and cuffs and blue trim. He exclaimed with joy, Thanks, old man, and hurried into the apartment. Soon after, 2 men passed by before noticing the cloak. Looking at it, one muttered, What's this crap? He spat on it. After that, what idiot would put this shit on the demon's steps? He couldn't be the Godem if he was the only thing alive. The other gave a nod and moved on. Let's get back to the actual tale. With a heavy sigh, Hinata turned to leave. Fast forward to Christmas. Hinata attacked a group of trees with rage. She yelled, gentle step twin lion fists, and wiped out a few trees. Udama Rasengan. In an instant, a massive block of concrete was ripped to pieces. Jiraiya gave a nod. Well, that was impressive, but you're not using your full chakra. Naruto gave a snort. If I used my full chakra, you'd be dead, pervy sage. Jiraiya broke out in a sweat. I mean, full chakra for that technique, not all of your chakra. With a slight smile on his face, Hiyashi slowly clapped his hands together. In my opinion, he is Byakuya's twin, though they are obviously not the same. Well, that's an excellent offensive technique, Hinata. I think we might even add that to our archives. Nodding, Hinata panted. She then passed out from a lack of chakra. Udama Rasengan, full chakra. The wall that Naruto struck then exploded, as did the ground 20 yards below and surrounding him. Jiraiya gave a clap. See, that's what I'm talking about. Naruto smiled before collapsing. Jiraiya gave an eye roll. What, chakra exhaustion? Naruto gave a snort. Good one. No, a freaking brick is in my gut. With a sigh, Jiraiya approached Naruto slowly panting. Naruto turned his thoughts back to Konoha. Dryly, Jiraiya said, Hey, kid, want to take a break? No, none of the other guys are going to take a vacation back in Konoha. On a couch, Rock Lee was snoring lightly. Sakura grinned broadly as she opened a gift and applauded its contents. He was snoring. Shikamaru, of course. Neji had a cup of tea. Sasuke, seeing as it is a major holiday, I want you to only use 20% effort while fighting Kukuku. Sasuke gave Orochimaru a sardonic glance. I use 10% of my ability normally. Orochimaru let out a sigh. Fine, just take a half-hour break. After glancing up at the sky, Hinata blinked when a cold droplet landed on her cheek. She took a closer look at the sky. Snow? On the island of Konoha? She gave a small smile. She muttered to herself, I wonder if it's snowing where Naruto-kun is. Can't believe it's snowing in, Naruto said, gazing up at the sky. This has been censored because of the slight possibility that Akatsuki members will read it. All of my friends Sakura, Lee, Kakashi, Shikamaru, Tenten, Neji, Akamaru, Shino, Hinata, he said with a slight smile. With a smile, he said, Hinata, I wonder what she's doing. I hope she's okay. She's always been a little delicate. She's always been strangely kind to me too. I hope she's enjoying herself in Konoha. I'm sure he's doing fine, and I'm sure I'll see him soon, Hinata said with a joyful sigh. As she was being carried to the hospital, she thought joyfully, Merry Christmas, Naruto. Happy Christmas, Konoha and Hinata, Naruto pondered after a moment. They both grinned. Naruto stared at the Raikage and Tsuchikage in disbelief, then took a step back, only to almost throw up as they underwent yet another transformation, rolling together before being welded into a monstrous shape that resembled a combination of Zetsu's level 3 Akuma from Man and Ameno's Grande. With white venom forming on his teeth and black slime dripping from long talons on his malformed hands, Zetsu snarled, and Naruto took a harsh breath before glaring at him. So, you used spores to track me? Zetsu appeared incapable of speaking. Well, I believe that if I can kick your ass, I'll be able to free all those under your spore's control and save those two old guys, Naruto said with a slight smirk. Tsunade thought, I see he has inherited Kushina's train of logical thought. Unfortunately. Zetsu remained quiet, then let out a savage roar that sent everyone reeling back. Naruto pursed his lips, creating a seal. Jutsu Shadow Clone. He shouted, causing 20 clones to appear out of nowhere. Then, with Rasengans in hand, all but 3 Narutos charged at Monster Zetsu, and when Zetsu simply swung a huge arm, the clones all disappeared. Naruto snarled, then withdrew Samahata, sending a ripple of chakra through it, turning it to Shippuden. He then made a chilly tearing motion above his eyes. Kami Fun. Then he focused his chakra and took a deep breath. He opened his eyes. Excellent wind protection. Waves of chakra rushed out of him as he roared. His chakra is greater than all of my village combined, the Mizukage exclaimed. Then Naruto vanished, and a stream of blood spurted from a wound on Zetsu. Naruto smiled. What is this? The wind pressure from its attack is still pushing me back, Naruto snarled before forcing his chakra into his hand and pushing the opposing force back when Zetsu slammed him into a wall, choking him. Zetsu then struck Naruto with another palm, causing him to gag and vomit blood. I can read his movements, but even with great wind armor, I can't avoid his attacks. How can something so big be so swift? And great wind armor is still protecting me, and yet I'm getting this badly hurt. After taking a sharp breath, Naruto swung Shippuden at Zetsu, scratching his hand before the skin rippled and healed instantly. Naruto swallowed, then quickly ducked as Zetsu swung again, destroying the entire building, and he shook his head in surprise. In my opinion, I have no chance of winning. He took a deep breath. But I must make an effort. Itachi grimaced as his chakra quadrupled and dark markings appeared around his eyes. You should be glad you never had to go through this, Madara Sage mode and full strength chakra? Then, with a roar, Zetsu sent out grotesque tentacles that shot in Naruto's direction. Naruto smiled, then, with a burst of red and blue chakra, severed all the extensions, and hurled some shuriken and made seals in a furious rush at Zetsu. Shadow clones from shuriken. Zetsu then screamed as a flurry of shuriken were inserted into her. God of Flying Thunder. Zetsu screamed as blood poured from a huge, gleaming golden blur that surrounded him. Naruto grumbled, "Ew, who the devil bleeds green?" Then, as the wounds closed, steam rose from Zetsu, and Naruto sweated before creating a fresh seal. Zetsu ejaculated another scream as the shuriken's tags all violently exploded, and Naruto jumped back, accumulating chakra in his hands. There were two big Rasen shuriken in them. Naruto whirled around and threw them. Suck this up. A significant portion of Zetsu was disentangled when the smoke cleared and the wind Rasengans struck directly. Naruto smiled, then exploded violently as Zetsu snatched him in a fist and slammed him to the ground after completely regenerating in a single second. Futon. Clone Great Explosion. Yes, I know the normal Clone Great Explosion isn't a wind jutsu, but he had great wind armor on, so it was a wind jutsu. Zetsu roared as Naruto leapt at him from behind. Then, pointing angrily at Zetsu with his palms, Naruto sealed, saying, "Pressure damage." As Zetsu screamed, a huge gash appeared from his bottom to his shoulder as Naruto swung his sword, causing a hole to be carved in him by a burst of air. When Zetsu screamed, a blast of air shot out and ripped into Naruto, who gasped as his skin was sliced and his garments ripped. This may not be my victory. A Rorschach of blood appeared behind him as he shivered and ran at Zetsu, screaming as he sliced at Zetsu, who then viciously slammed a palm into Naruto, causing him to crash into the wall in agony. Naruto regurgitated blood as he choked. Fuck. There was Naruto in the white. He scanned his surroundings. Where am I? Pain was present for a seemingly endless amount of time. They gazed at one another. Then the emptiness gave way to chaos. Dark earth, black sky. Naruto gasped as wounds appeared. Naruto looked up and saw that it was the village. This was the first battle. Naruto was attacked by Pain's animals. After dodging, Naruto destroyed. What's happening? An additional time warp. Then he was hit by the blades. Carnally, Naruto screamed at the sky, "I apologize, I've always wished to write something like that." After waking up, Naruto quickly avoided a Zetsu blow. He muttered, "What the hell?" and conjured up a massive shuriken, which he threw at Zetsu, who absorbed it with ease after bouncing off a wall. Naruto's hand charged up with chakra. Rasengan. Rasengan. Naruto blinked. Huh? He gazed at Sasuke on the other side. Again? The Valley of the End was the location when the Rasengan and Chidori collided. Chakra flew everywhere. Then a ruthless smile came to Sasuke's face. His voice was distorted and sounded like a legion of demons as he said, "What's the matter, Naruto? Feeling upset, Naruto? Maybe you should just have a nice, long rest, Naruto." Remember Slim Shady's voice from the song, "My Darling"? Naruto growled. What? The world began to spin like a merry-go-round from hell as Sasuke's voice became even more twisted. Orochimaru gave Naruto a smile. The malevolent voice called out, "Come on, Naruto-kun. You know you will never win, Naruto, because we should have claimed you so long ago." Subsequently, the entire world turned black, and evil tendrils grabbed hold of Naruto, dragging him down with their claws. In an attempt to tear the appendages off, Naruto screamed. "No. Fuck no. I'm not going to die." Naruto gulped as a huge fist struck his torso, destroying his clothing, except for his pants and jacket sleeves, and causing his Rasengan to disappear. Naruto sweated and panted viciously. How is this taking place? After taking a ragged breath, Naruto placed his palms on the floor, summoning jutsu. Gamahiro, Gamabunta, and Gamaken showed up. Gamabunta glanced at Zetsu and winced. "Kid, what the hell is that?" He simply gazed at Naruto. After that, the ghost of the fourth, Jiraiya, and Pain seemed to surround him, and insane killing intent radiated off of him. Blood was all over him. Gamabunta swallowed. "This is probably the first time I have been afraid of a human. His chakra, it's greater than anything I could have ever imagined." Naruto then leapt up atop him, making some seals. "Oil now." he said quietly. Gamabunta swallowed, then nodded, and all three toads spewed up oil. Naruto then forced his hands forwards, grimacing at the cuts on them. Futon. Great breakthrough! He yelled, as a newly created shadow clone leapt out from behind him, throwing a kunai with an explosive tag. Naruto froze, staring at the Kyuubi, as it grinned at him with lifeless eyes. Naruto staggered back, but a tall, threatening figure grabbed him. Kisame gave a savage smile. Missed me? Itachi came into focus after Naruto choked and noticed crows in the sky. Naruto's blood ran colder than ice as the blood-red eyes gazed into his. Why won't you just die? With a painful scream, Naruto collapsed to his knees and began to shake. Naruto saw a huge, charred husk when he abruptly returned to reality after blinking. Naruto dropped to his knees. What the? He gave a headshake. Is it over? Tsunade exclaimed. He did it, as the Mizukage nodded. Itachi just stared without saying anything. Then came the beginning of a guttural laugh, which crescendoed into a maddening, psychotic giggle. As the nearly black-green slime rose from the ashes, Naruto watched in horror as a humanoid figure emerged, 10 feet tall and covered in terrifying thorn-like spikes, with its spine protruding in stark contrast. Naruto was met with a smile from the bestial figure. Oh, this deathly ballet of ours shall never be over. Gazing gloomily at Zetsu, Naruto took a sharp breath. Zetsu inhaled calmly, smiled, and then turned to face Naruto while clenching his fist. Tell me. Zetsu was standing right beside Naruto when he gasped. Zetsu gradually relaxed his grip, causing his fingers to spread out until they formed talons, which are a green variant of Crown Clown from the man. What right do you have to try and stop me? Naruto screamed before he could blink because his chest had a deep cut. Zetsu whispered behind him, or rather, what right do you have to believe you can stop me? With a gasp, Naruto collapsed as his Kami-fun diminished. Zetsu dutifully examined his hands. For a human, you certainly have a remarkable amount of blood, he replied indifferently. It should be in a medical journal, almost. After panting, Naruto hurled a kunai at Zetsu in a furious manner. The kunai bounced off Zetsu, who laughed, so pitiful. Another talon passed through Naruto's ribs, narrowly missing his heart, and he choked, coughing up blood. Zetsu laughed. Now then, to dispose of you, Naruto. Naruto let out a painful wheeze. Why? He muttered, attempting to keep from tripping over the blade that resembled a scalpel. Zetsu gave a mean smile. Why? Simply because I am disgusted with this world. After giving him a chilly glance, Naruto coughed up blood once more. He glanced around wearily and said, Damn it, I don't remember ever feeling this bad. The lights are flashing, and everything is so incredibly blurry. More blood spurted out of him. Shit. Zetsu grinned. Vermin crawling upon this earth disgustingly, like insects. The world's strongest shinobi, at this point, would cause no more trouble to me than the world's strongest hummingbird. He chuckled dementedly. I shall spread through this world my offspring, and make things truly survival of the fittest. He extended another evil blade in Naruto's direction, and now time to die. Gazing gloomily at Zetsu, Naruto took a sharp breath. Zetsu inhaled calmly, smiled, and then turned to face Naruto while clenching his fist. Tell me. Zetsu was standing right beside Naruto when he gasped. Zetsu gradually relaxed his grip, causing his fingers to spread out until they formed talons, which are a green variant of Crown Clown from the man. What right do you have to try and stop me? Naruto screamed before he could blink because his chest had a deep cut. Zetsu whispered behind him, or rather, what right do you have to believe you can stop me? With a gasp, Naruto collapsed as his Kami-fun diminished. Zetsu dutifully examined his hands. For a human, you certainly have a remarkable amount of blood, he replied indifferently. It should be in a medical journal, almost. After panting, Naruto hurled a kunai at Zetsu in a furious manner. The kunai bounced off Zetsu, who laughed, so pitiful. Another talon passed through Naruto's ribs, narrowly missing his heart, and he choked, coughing up blood. Zetsu laughed. Now then, to dispose of you, Naruto. Naruto let out a painful wheeze. Why? He muttered, attempting to keep from tripping over the blade that resembled a scalpel. Zetsu gave a mean smile. Why? Simply because I am disgusted with this world. After giving him a chilly glance, Naruto coughed up blood once more. He glanced around wearily and said, Damn it, I don't remember ever feeling this bad. The lights are flashing, and everything is so incredibly blurry. More blood spurted out of him. Shit. Zetsu grinned. Vermin crawling upon this earth disgustingly, like insects. The world's strongest shinobi, at this point, would cause no more trouble to me than the world's strongest hummingbird. He chuckled dementedly. I shall spread through this world my offspring, and make things truly survival of the fittest. He extended another evil blade in Naruto's direction, and now time to die. Then a fist struck him in the back, and he staggered forward. Blood was spat up by Naruto, Granny Tsunade. Zetsu growled. He swung at Tsunade, who barely avoided him, and then sliced at his tendons, saying icily, "Idiot." She exclaimed, "Chakra scalpel." With rage Zetsu winced, then smiled as his body began to regenerate. Immediately he turned to Naruto after slamming Tsunade out of the way. A swarm of crows erupted around Naruto. Zetsu growled, "Damn. Now that your chakra is lowered, without any injuries," Itachi and Tsunade jumped out at Zetsu. "We can fight." Tsunade swung at Zetsu with a roar. More subtly, Itachi said, "I concur." Naruto inhaled deeply before sitting down and consuming a swig of water, a soldier pill, and a blood-replenishing pill from his seemingly unbreakable canteen. Zetsu sparred with the two S-ranked ninjas in a composed manner to survive that damned attack. "I had to transform all of my chakra into armor, and now it's taking longer to refuel. I could be killed if that boy summons the nine-tailed fox demon." As Itachi thrust his fist through Zetsu's body, he scowled and then slashed at both Tsunade and Itachi. Cutting into Tsunade, horrible vines started to grow up Itachi's arm as Zetsu smiled after a one-handed seal. Itachi frowned and the wires on his arm caught fire, setting the vines on fire and scorching Zetsu. Zetsu ripped himself to pieces and then threw up a scroll, which he unraveled to conjure a dizzying array of explosive tags that exploded at once. Up until a metal wire wrapped around both of their torsos, Tsunade and Itachi had managed to escape before being dragged back to the Mizukage. They gasped. She hissed, "Are you trying to die?" Naruto took another breath and turned to face the world at a patch of rippling earth. His eyes grew wide. A doppelganger of Zetsu abruptly emerged from it, and then another and a third did the same after frowning. Naruto made a few shadow clones. Zetsu gave Naruto a crazy smile before creating a seal that caused the clones to transform into leaves that resembled shuriken and shoot at him. He yelled, "Would release Chimera Breeze." After creating a seal, Naruto transformed his 4 shadow clones into enormous shuriken, which he then hurled at the leaves. Naruto hissed as the blades sliced into his shoulders as the foliage sliced through the shuriken, causing them to explode in a cloud of smoke. After transforming them into shuriken, Naruto created 5 more clones and threw them straight at Zetsu. Zetsu held up his hand to block them, but as he screamed in agony, one of the shuriken changed into a kunai with a tag rather than a clone, and Naruto used Shippuden to slit Zetsu across the torso. In a fit of rage, Zetsu seized Naruto, who smiled and sealed. The shuriken then all reverted to clones, which detonated. Itachi gave a startled shake of his head. His chakra is astounding. It is almost like he is a tailed beast. Zetsu took a ragged breath and began to heal slowly, quickly creating seals. After that, he touched the cave's wall. It exploded violently, sending mud flying at Naruto like a dragon, and then an odd circle appeared on it. After giving a grimace, Naruto launched a kunai into the jutsu. Large cuts appeared in the dragon, and it vanished instantly. Zetsu growled, then started to tear the air. Water release, vicious pulse. A jarring burst of water suddenly materialized out of thin air and struck Naruto. Zetsu appeared in front of Naruto, who stabbed him after yelling and crashing into a wall. With Itachi deflecting the blow, Zetsu frowned while Naruto let out a harsh gasp. Zetsu said dryly, "I meant to stab him through the heart." Zetsu then leapt back and threw some vines at Itachi and Naruto with a quick leap. Naruto cut through the vines and landed beside Zetsu. "Got you." A Zetsu mud clone grabbed Naruto, choking him. Zetsu grinned before launching a talon at Naruto once more. Then, in a cloud of smoke, Naruto vanished, to be replaced by an explosive tag that exploded, tearing apart the clone and setting Zetsu on fire. After snarling, Zetsu turned to see Naruto smiling while wearing Great Wind armor, Sage Mode, and Kami Fun plus Kyuubi eyes. Zetsu frowned after blinking. "Don't tell me." His Mangekyo Sharingan was blazing when he turned to see Itachi with a sigh. Zetsu turned to face Naruto. "That is simply fantastic." Tsunade screamed, but mud clones dragged her underground with the Mizukage, and Itachi collapsed as a thin blade sliced through his throat, spraying crimson. After screaming, Naruto turned to face Zetsu and said, "You little fucker," he cried out. Zetsu laughed and then swung his claws at Naruto. Using Shippuden, Naruto angrily blocked them, saying, "I'll kill you." He let out a scream. Zetsu smiled before his skin began to bubble and peel away. "Oh my god, I'd love to see you. Try." Zetsu screamed, making a seal, and putting both hands on the ground as his flesh peeled away to reveal a rotten, corpse-like exoskeleton. he screamed maniacally. What the I feel some insane chakra? Naruto staggered back. Then the world appeared to end when the earth and plants outside turned to ashes and an uncanny green glow flew from them to Zetsu. The cave turned to dust, and Zetsu smiled. Jutsu for unholy sealing. Mirror Genesis. Zetsu then sapped Naruto, who staggered backwards and fell on his back as the earth shattered and lava poured out. Zetsu then smiled as white shadows flew toward him from beyond the horizon. Aid! Naruto blinked, gasped, and then let out a scream. Those are souls. He cried out. The world appeared to turn black from smoke as Zetsu, now 40 feet tall and towering over Naruto, laughed maniacally. Zetsu then turned black and more bestial, his skeleton tearing through his flesh, his eyes turning a dull, glassy black, his back erupting in desolate black wings as he wailed, and his bones splintering into large blades. This chakra is more than I could have ever imagined. I haven't been this powerful with my eight-tailed transformation, Naruto exclaimed, collapsing to his knees. Then, with a scream akin to a tortured demon legion, Zetsu's jaw broke free. As his clothes ripped and the ground broke under the sheer force, Naruto also let out a scream. Then Zetsu grinned and said, "Pitiful being," in a resonant voice, "as if you could ever stop me. Naruto, you understand that you are currently the most powerful ninja in the world. The world has no chance at all when you're dead." Zetsu chuckled, "And you filth, I'll get rid of you all. I'll murder them all. I'll kill you all." He hysterically laughed. Naruto swung his arm back, took a ragged breath, braced himself, and launched a vicious shot at Zetsu. "Rasenshuriken!" he shouted, hurling a Rasenshuriken wildly. The attack struck Zetsu and then disappeared. Naruto screamed as a monstrous fist slammed him to the ground, splattering his blood across the black earth. Zetsu smiled before a mass of chakra materialized in his mouth and shot at Naruto at an unbelievable speed. Behind Naruto, a single tail emerged. As the attack struck the ground and created a crater a kilometer in radius, Naruto screamed, vanished in an instant, panted in midair, and then fired at Zetsu once more. Naruto screamed and was violently repelled back by the chakra radiating off of him. Zetsu laughed, and Naruto then developed a second tail. "I feel a huge wave even though the pressure is off. If anyone else had to deal with this, they would probably be dead." After taking a deep breath, he flew at Zetsu. Pressure damaged. Zetsu laughed as the jutsu flew at him in a rapid-fire barrage. "What, do you think that breeze will hurt me?" Naruto let out a scream. Rasenshuriken. In a fit of rage, Naruto hurled Rasenshuriken at Zetsu, but they all just scratched him and were immediately repaired. Tail number 3. Zetsu chuckled. "All of the chakra you could muster would do nothing against me." After frowning, Naruto let out a ferocious scream and shot at Zetsu, causing a gash in his body. After screaming, Zetsu seized Naruto and slammed him to the ground. As Naruto screamed and coughed up blood, everything turned black. Naruto glanced at the flurry of colors that flashed all around him. He let out a scream, "Make it stop. Make it fucking stop." After screaming, he just stared. He flashed to Zetsu, Kisame, Itachi, Orochimaru, and everyone else he remembered ever fighting while Madara was facing him. The figure laughed, and Naruto staggered back. "Come on, Naruto." Every minuscule second, the voice changed, going from Zetsu's terrifying giggle to Kisame's sadistic call to Madara's baritone. Then they all began to swarm him while giggling at him. "We will all kill you, Naruto." Another demonic chakra ball was charged by Zetsu. When Madara yelled, "Then, we will destroy all of Konoha." She tore Naruto's arm off. As the arm healed, Naruto let out a scream. "And all of the people inside." Kisame chuckled. After that, Zetsu aimed the ball at Naruto. "Your friends, Sakura, Hinata, Sasuke, everyone." With a laugh, Orochimaru tore apart Naruto's torso, which turned to dust before healing itself. Naruto let out a painful scream. Naruto was struck by the chakra wave, which tore him apart and left his body limp. "Everyone you care about will pass away." Zetsu screamed crazily. A million blades pierced Naruto's heart, causing him to scream and fall backward for what seemed like an eternity. "I lost." Inhaling, he descended and sensed a light beneath him. "I didn't succeed." He shut his eyes, allowing the darkness to engulf him. Naruto. Naruto's heart was pounding. What? Minato, Kushina, the Third, Tsunade, Itachi, and everyone else were holding Naruto when he gasped, and they were all glowing a bright yellow gold light. "Naruto, you must persevere." Sakura's voice sounded angelic as she spoke. Kakashi's voice sounded majestic as he said, "Naruto, it's now or never." Sasuke calmly and richly darkly said, You can do it, Dobi. Naruto turned to see the divine smile on Hinata's face. Hinata gave him a kiss. She whispered, "You can do it, Naruto-kun." Then they all disappeared, but Naruto continued to smile as the golden aura encircled him. As he carried the unconscious, barely breathing bodies of Tsunade and the Mizukage, Itachi panted and breathed harshly. Zetsu let out a triumphant scream. "No, that's impossible, Naruto, you couldn't have lost," Itachi said, turning pale. He slammed his fist into the floor and screamed, "Damn it." He scraped his fist and screamed. Then all of a sudden the ground began to ripple. Itachi raised his head. The earth was being repaired and all of the foliage was being restored by the chakra that was emanating from the sudden giant golden light in the air. A feeling of warmth passed through Itachi, Naruto. He took a breath. Then the Mizukage and Tsunade stirred. Hinata gasped as Konohagakure began to heal itself after suddenly glowing from chakra. "What's happening?" She then grinned subtly. "Naruto." The trio of S-ranked gazed in awe. Zetsu looked at the luminous thing. Naruto looked at Zetsu and smiled. Zetsu let out a scream. Chakra just radiated out as Naruto's smile grew. Zetsu stopped. "This chakra. What is it?" He let out a scream. "I'll tear it, I'll rip it apart, I'll kill it. I'm afraid." Naruto gazed at Zetsu, who had golden chakra radiating from him like a rejuvenating hurricane, and clear blue eyes chakra began to swirl around his palm as he raised it. Paralyzed by fascination, Zetsu let out a scream. The chakra then began to form a sphere, which gradually grew faster as it expanded, then compressed, until it resembled a golden tornado. With a shout, Naruto swung his arm in Zetsu's direction. "This is it." With a howl, Zetsu hurled enormous waves of chakra at Naruto, which blew off him like smoke. Zetsu was struck by Naruto's blow. Rasengan Sauseki, Genesis. As the chakra surged through him, Zetsu let out a scream. It destroyed him, purified him. What is this power? He asked himself. He began to dissolve, to wash away, to fade to dust. He grinned. "This boy is something," I said. With his chakra dwindling, Naruto fell until he struck the ground softly. He blinked. He inhaled. "It's over." He smiled, grinning. He gave the air a fist pump. Believe it. Epilogue. After 10 years. "Hey Dad, watch this." As his son Akira called forth a tadpole, Naruto smiled and laughed. "Hey, no fair. I could do it before." Ruffling his son's black hair and grinning at the tadpole mirrored in his son's resolute blue eyes, Naruto laughed. He grinned as he peered out of his office deck. Hinata approached him, grinned, and gave him a hug. Casually pushing his hair back, Naruto smiled and waved. "Hey, Lee." As Naruto and his red-haired wife were walking down the street, a tall Jonin with a trench coat and a lelouch, lamperouge, haircut turned and waved at him. Gazing at the Byakuya residence, where Neji had recently assumed leadership and taken Tenten as his wife, Naruto grinned. Naruto broke out in a sweat. Tenten treated him more like her husband. After a quiet chuckle, Hinata gave Naruto a letter. She said, "It's from Shikamaru." Naruto ripped it open and smiled. "Naruto, the Hokage. I am bringing you Suna's greetings in any case, Nanami, Tamari, Gaara, and that other brother." Who's Nanami again?" "Shikamaru's daughter, Naruto." "Oh, yeah? Are doing well. You must remember the name of my daughter, Naruto." "How did he do that?" Hinata chuckled. "I suppose Matsuri is also good. Gaara wants me to be his personal guard, which is annoying, although it seems tedious. In any case. How is the village and Akira doing?" "Because I promised to kill you. If you blow the place up again, I will kill you by deliberately breaking the seal that limits your chakra." Hinata gave a blink. "What seal?" Naruto scratched his head and laughed. 5 villages. Decided to divide my chakra to a 5th. Yeah, it's kind of weird." Hinata gave an eye roll. Naruto gave a shrug. "Konohamaru was against it, saying he wanted to fight me at full power, kick my ass." With a raised eyebrow, Hinata gave Naruto a hug. "Well, once he gets to Jonin level, I'm sure he'll be a threat." "Hey, Naruto." Gazing down at Kakashi and Anko, Naruto smiled. "Hey, what's up?" called Naruto. Anko smiled. "Getting some dango with Kurenai and her Gaki. Wanna come?" Anko shrugged, pulling Kakashi with him as Naruto went pale and shook his head. Naruto stared at the letter once more. "Itachi and Sasuke are ANBU's company captains, right?" Until the Mizukage threw her support behind them, neither was widely accepted. Naruto broke out in a sweat. "Seriously, how does he know this stuff?" "My time is up, then you'll figure out another way to carry on the story, I'm sure." See you later. Shikamaru. Naruto let out a sigh. What the hell does he mean by continue the plot? Hinata grinned from 6 inches above her. She patted his head and said, "You'll learn when you're older." With a shrug, Naruto left while gazing out into the village. He smiled. What a strange thing 10 years can do. A 5-nation anti-war pact, an improvement in ninja and chakra level quality. And an almost unsettling number of couples getting together, he said, perspiring. Kiba and Ino. I mean? Really? Naruto smiled. Life has definitely improved, hasn't it? As a light breeze blew past them, Naruto gave Hinata a gentle kiss and held her while the Anbu sunshined and the Academy's children laughed. And we are creating a world that is truly pain-free.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.